Welcome. We are live. Episode 72, featuring Arnold Brathwaite, man. So this is gonna be a dope one. This is gonna be fun. So shout out to all my my baseball peeps out there. They'll always be ready for a baseball guest to come on. So and my first sport was baseball, so I owe it to them. So they'll always be paying attention. But shout out to everybody. Hope everybody doing well. Good night, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you at in the world today. Hope everybody being safe. Hope everybody good. Episode 72. The episodes them is just flying by, man. Time is just going by real quick, man. Good night to everybody. Good night to everybody. Doing big up, Aaron, big up. Man, Aaron, I forgot to text you. I got to text you. I was driving and I was like, man, I got to text this man. But I gonna hit you up. But like I said, man, I hope everybody doing well. Happy Sunday over here in Florida, over here in Orlando, man. It's been raining a lot and stuff like that. So rain is always a blessing and stuff, man. It's always good for the art and stuff. Prayers to everybody in the Caribbean, everybody who have family in the St. Vincent in that area and stuff with the volcano. So prayers and everybody, prayers out to everybody and stuff, man. So everybody doing well with that. Hope everybody having a good week. Hope everybody being safe. We living in some hectic times, so I just hope everybody's safe and stuff. But I'll get right into it. Shout out to some of the local business owners from the Virgin Islands, man. They're doing their thing, so we always like to shout them out and give them support and stuff and everything. Big up Persia, big up Arika, big up. Good night to everybody. Damn, my stuff kind of freezing for some reason. Let's see. All right, yeah, but yeah, good night to everybody. Good night. So like I was saying, we're gonna shout out to some of the business owners from the Virgin Islands doing the thing. Definitely you guys go out and support. We got the legends340.com. This is one of these shirts I'm wearing. Legends340. So you guys check out the website. We got Savory Eats LLC. Sheena Fontaine. She was on last episode. We got meltedparkcookingclass.com. Also follow on Instagram at the Melted Park Cooking Class. We got Siboney Caribbean Restaurant. We got Next Level Up Printing. We got Calypso Clothing, calypsoclothing.com. They will be coming on Wednesday. Next week, Wednesday, they will be coming on. Well, this Wednesday coming up. We got Hungry Hearts Hustle Apparel.com. Also on Instagram, Hungry Hearts Hustle. We got Island Time. We also got Coach Tiga 41 workout videos on Patreon. We got CaribbeanGirlsRock.com, Facebook at Caribbean Girls Rock, Instagram, official Caribbean Girls Rock, IG. We got meltedbycroix.com, also on Facebook and Instagram as Melted by Croix. We got Rico Canario. His website is www.lulu.com/spotlight/R Canario. We got Midnight ENT. Follow on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok at The Real Midnight. Also on Facebook at Real Midnight ENT. We got City of Refuge Worship Center. Live stream every Sunday, 10 a.m. Follow on Facebook. We got The Good Life Apparel. We got AIM Credit Repair LLC. We got follow on Facebook at Livewire Sports. C Boogie Talks. Shout out to Christopher Henry. C Boogie Talks. Thursdays, 8 p.m. Make sure you guys check him out. I always got good conversation, good dialogue. Definitely big up to Christopher Henry. We got the Brand LLC website, www.brandnewhomes.com. We got On the Edge Performance. Follow on YouTube, Facebook, and On the Edge. Also on Instagram, On the Edge Performance. We got follow on Facebook and Instagram at Dexter_Sinister_exclusive unapologetic. We got Apollo Legion. We got Paris Enterprise. Shout out to Dave. I see you doing big things on the turntable. So shout out. So support Paris Enterprise. We got Larisha Star Brown, Stars Eats and Treats. We got Bubbles Promotion. We got Mentality of a Pro. That's the title of Tegan's new book. Website is www.kevincoachtshepard.com. Shout out to the team with Basic over in Georgia. The basketball team. They're doing they're over there playing. So definitely big shout outs to them. I'm happy they arrived there safe and continue to represent the Virgin Islands. We got Nona Enviro Group website www.environona.com. Shout out to Wayne, shout out to Chanel and the whole family. We got Kenya Eugene website www.kenyaheartmusic.com. Make sure you guys go support her, check out her album and also her EP as well too. We got Senator Genevieve Whitaker as well too. Follow on Instagram at Senator Genevieve Whitaker and also on Twitter at Senator Whitaker. We got anonymouswestgirl.com as well too. Definitely go out and support as well. And last but not least, our YouTube channel is v.i.legends. So hope everybody doing well. Hope everybody doing good. So I'll touch up real quick on last episode. Good night, Charmaine. Good night, good night. Big up, Chris. Big up, big up, big up. Shout out to everybody tuning in, supporting Arnold and his episode. So appreciate the viewers tuning in and checking in and everything. Last episode we had Sheena Fontaine. Amazing episode, man. She talked a lot about herself growing up. She touched on the business, her concepts. She loved cooking, man. So she was dropping a lot of gems, and she kind of talked about herself and how she could be hard on her friends. But it was just refreshing to hear her episode. I'm one of the many individuals that purchased food from her, and she could throw down in the kitchen. But make sure you guys go to support Savory Eats. Shout out to Sheena, and I appreciate her coming on and sharing her business mind with us and everything. So good night, Carrier. Good night, good night, good night. So we on to episode 72 featuring Arnold Brathwaite, baseball scout for the San Francisco Giants, so I can't wait to hear his story, man. When I was playing, I always see scouts in the back with the radar guns, with the charts, everything. They come into BP, all the batting practice. They come in to check out pitchers, throwing bullpen. So, I always used to see them around. So this is going to be my first of actually hearing a scout, talk and everything, man. So I'm excited. And the fact that Arnold is from the Virgin Islands as well, too. And, he played with a lot of different players that I grew up admiring and I played against as well, too, as a kid. So it's just an honor to have someone from the Virgin Islands representing in that area, in that profession in baseball. Baseball being a rich sport in the Virgin Islands, in St. Croix and St. Thomas, it's very historical. We go back into the 40s, the 30s, people representing, playing Winter League in Puerto Rico. Harris Clark, rest in peace. Emma Plaskett, rest in peace. And the list goes on. I know I have a lot of my baseball heads viewing right now, and I know they have a lot more information than me. My information is not that broad, but I'm just appreciating, Anna being here. So I'm not going to talk all your ears off the debt. Good night, good night, good night, Jenny. Good night, good night. Make sure you guys supporting everybody. So we here featuring Arnold Brathwaite. Welcome to the Elite Podcast. Your time is here, man. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Mamba.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on, brother.
No problem, no problem. Glad we're able to find the time to finally make this work. And I apologize for my schedule in advance.
It's all love, brother. All love, man. It's all love. Baseball time is hectic, man. Baseball time is hectic. So, you guys play the most games in a season out of all the professional sports. So,
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you're looking at a full major league season. You're talking about 162 games over a course of 6 months. So it's a lot of games within a short span of time, no doubt.
Yeah, man. So how you doing, man? How's your week going? How's the family? How's everybody? How's the family and everybody doing?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, man. Family's good. Wife, Erin, and son, Nick Leiter at home. Right now I'm on the road, obviously, which is kind of like the story of my life, right? That's what I do. So, that strong family core at home is always good. Obviously, I still have family in St. Croix. My sister, Shauna, and my brother, Arl. So, everybody's good, man. I appreciate you asking.
Man, that's good, man. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. So, since you touched on it, with baseball, how does it affect you being away from your family, man? Because baseball is so hectic, and you always got to be traveling so much.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a fair question. The good thing about my situation is, this is what my family knows. From the time I met my wife and being around my son, this is all they know. Me being gone for a period of time and coming home for a period of time and then back out. I try my best not to stay out for too long. So like my time frame is like that 10 to 14 day, and then I'm home for a couple of days, then back out on another stretch, especially within, the spring season, which is kind of my busiest time from the end of January to the draft, which this year is in July. So we got a little bit more time to work, but still, just finding the time to make sure, you get home for like a soccer game or, a big event for the family, and just, whether it's a birthday or, sneaking in for, some kind of, gathering that we might have, just trying my best to be around as much as possible during the season. Obviously on the downtime, which is, for me is more like in that October, November, December time frame, early January. Obviously I'm home a lot more and able to interact a lot more with my family on a day-to-day
Okay.
basis.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, that's good. You get to get home a couple of times, which is good. For us players, man, it was tough. We would go like almost the whole season. Sometimes we see our family like once, maybe for like a weekend series, like a 5-game series or something like that. So man, that's good that you get to pop in and out, multiple times. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely a different life from a player's life, no doubt. We talk about being there for the whole season, opposed to me just bouncing in and out. I mean, that's a totally different landscape.
Talk about you Arnold growing up in the Virgin Islands, as a kid. How was that like? How was that experience like?
Man, I won't change for anything in the world, man. I mean, um, having an opportunity to grow up on an island obviously is unique in itself, right? I mean, how many people you come across, like I said, and then obviously a U.S. territory. Um, you know, from a young age, obviously I was engaged in baseball, introduced to me by my brother, and I grew up in Wim, right about, right literally down the road from Wim Park, right? So like that's like my home. That's like where I kind of honed my craft from an early age. Playing in in Plastic Little League West. And just having the opportunity to day in and day out, be there, engaging with different people from just like the neighborhood, like let's say like Andy Herb that was older than me, but played against him. Roger Cropper that lived like literally right on the corner by the ballpark. I mean, those are the people that like growing up like I competed against just like kind of on a day-to-day basis. And like from a standpoint of from that age of 9, kind of matriculating through from little league to senior league to like man league, all of that was like a growing and learning experience within itself.
It's true.
In the league I played for the SBS Shamrocks, and I'm sure some of the viewers, we're gonna get into the Shamrocks versus the Reds, or the Shamrocks versus the Dusters, or the Chewies.
Yeah, yeah,
Back in the day, that's what it was about. And when it's all said and done, we beat up on each other. We win one week, somebody else win the next week. We all go to
yeah,
Rosa by a Lindiana party and call it a day. You know,
yeah. That's true.
those are the fun times, and that's what I remember. Like from that early age, and then being able to compete like in all-star games from 9 to 10, 11 to 12, um, and even at that young age, being able to travel within the Caribbean and the territory, competing against like the Sean's Gabriels, or the Calvin Pickerings, or the Casey Hendricks on St. Thomas.
Yeah,
Um, and then having a chance to win some of those tournaments and then travel like Santo Domingo at a young age and be able to compete at that level. All those experiences kind of honed my skills, and even having a chance to represent not only St. Croix but the Virgin Islands, in touching the 15 championship that was hosted on St. Croix, right there in Polly Joseph Stadium. I mean, those were like
man.
experiences that you'll never forget. Being able to share a field with like Sean Nolan, who was one of the elite players at the time. And I was like the young 13-year-old playing with a bunch of these 15-year-olds that like I was like looking up to like trying to be them.
Yeah,
Um, so it was good, man. It was good. Like I mean, I could sit here and name names all night. From Geronimo Newton to like the J.D. Clarks and the Glenn Byrons and the Kareem Smiths and Rasan Smith. Ho Chi. Antonio Lewis. Like Pounda, Wayne Abramson. Like, I mean, there's so many players that during that period of time from Little League, Senior League, even into Man League, when you step on that big field and, the little fence is gone, All-Star, probably do to bring in the fence,
Yeah.
And then when you step on the man, you think it ain't thing, right? And then you get the Man League and all of a sudden that little fence gone. So no, they were
Yeah.
literally grown men, right? So, you're competing against them and it's like, wait a minute. These guys big and strong, but it goes to like the you're facing all like the Bobby Youngsters of the world, and you're playing against the Real Sakis and the Jeff Clarks, and like Juice, Celestino, just big Carlos, from like the Cobras, like it's just it's so many players, so many instances, so many good times, man. We could sit here all night and just talk about that.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's true, man. I'm so happy you calling all these names, man. You bringing back a
Yeah.
lot of memories, and it's always good to mention those names. I like when the individuals, on their episode list a bunch of different names from the different athletes or individuals from the Virginella, so everybody could hear their names as well too. Because some might not be here with us anymore, and some still with us. We might know where they are, but just to hear their name, you kind of give that a little life as well too. So which
No
is
doubt.
awesome.
No doubt.
So you mentioned you play with Shamrocks, and a lot of the viewers in the chat bragging about the Shamrocks, the powerhouse Shamrocks and stuff like that. I'm a Reds man, but is Anna episode, so I'm gonna pay my respects to the Shamrocks. I'm gonna pay my respects to the Shamrocks. So shout out to all the SPS legends.
Listen, we had some very good competitive games, man. I mean, like, I don't know to this day, like, if the league will ever be the same. Like, 'cause I remember playing the league when the stands were packed.
Yeah.
We always played in front of a big crowd from a young age. A lot of people don't have that experience, and all our games were competitive. So
That's true.
you talk about the Reds, you talk about the Dusters, you talk about the Chewies, you got to talk about Shamrocks because we represented for the Catholic school, quote unquote, boys, playing against
Yeah.
all these public school guys, and it's like, it was always fun. Everybody knew everybody because most of we was from West, so it was like it was no strangers, and we were just looking forward to those games, man.
Yeah, and that's what was so good about during them times, because we all knew each other, and we all went to almost this. A lot of us went to the same schools, but we all used to see each other all the time. So it was like about like bragging rights, and it draw that competitiveness out of you because you wanted to win. You wanted to do good because if you lose or you didn't do good, you was gonna hear it from your friends, and they gonna tease you or you gonna brag and you all that stuff, man. So that was the good times, man.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely,
So
absolutely, best of times.
yeah, best, definitely. Who was your coach for SPS?
Well, I went through several coaches. I had Glenn Byron. We had Kenny Clark. Um, Jimmy Harris coached us for a while. My brother coached us a little bit. But for the most part, it was Glenn Byron and Kenny Clark that kind of took over the team, and especially in my later years, the 11 to 12 kind of years that I can recall. But you brought up when you talk about coaches. I mean, that's another aspect that we don't really focus on a lot. But
Yeah,
I mentioned Genix. Rest in peace to him because he put in a lot of years with baseball on St. Croix and in the territory. Guinevere Edwy that used to coach the Dusters with Jackie Ross, you know, Wayne Hawley that had the team out the Grove that then became like the Vikings in my league.
Yeah.
Book Lynch to Ronnie Foster to there were so many people that like touched us during those times from a player standpoint, and everybody was kind of looking out for us. But in the same time, we're competing against everybody, right? So that's kudos to them, because I don't know right now if you still have that, because I don't know who like took over for those people, who stepped up in their places to replace them, then to keep that tradition going and to keep that kind of knowledge and enthusiasm and passion about the game going.
Yeah, it's true, man. That's true. We have a question here. They want to know if we ever faced each other in Little League or any leagues. I don't think we ever faced each other.
I would
That I can
no.
remember. My memory is bad, so
I am old conk, so I'm a little older than you.
yeah, yeah. You older than me because you played around Kareem time, right? Kareem Smith and those guys, right?
Yeah, so I would play. My time was like Kareem Smith, J.D. Clark, Glenn Byron, Terry Brown was
Yeah,
probably 2 years or 3 years behind us.
yeah,
Played a year with Medre Cummins, like Jackie Ross, um, like Andy Herbert was probably 3 years older than me. So I got to play a year with him. Year with like Roger Cropper, Rasan Foster. Um,
yeah,
so that kind of age bracket probably was a little bit before your time.
yeah. Because by the time I get to Man League, and then when I was, because I played with Rasan Foster, but you was already gone, so I think, yeah, you was already gone by then, you know. Who did you play with in Little League? I mean, not in Little League, but Senior League.
Oh, so when I get to senior league, I played originally with Rookie Jackson, Renhall Rookie Jackson. That's another man who been around
Yes.
baseball and youth rounds, especially in St. Croix a long time. Former police officer that ran PAL. So
Yeah.
I started senior league with him. Ended up playing some with Mencho as well. Mencho that had
Eventually.
Cobras. Yeah, so like I kind of split time between those two, because when one team kind of folded, and I kind of gravitated to the next one.
And what position did you play?
I was predominantly a shortstop pitcher growing up, um, until I got to college, and then I became a center fielder in college.
And you played baseball at St. Joseph, right? Correct? St. Joseph Saints.
Correct. So once I left St. Patrick's, I went on to St. Joseph for high school, and during that time, like we didn't really have like a high school team per se. We had like a softball team, but we didn't have a baseball team. So during my high school years, all my games were played in either 13 to 15 or man league. Um, Between, like I said, the Mets to the Cobras, to then in man league, spent some time with the age. We were playing like with man like Real Saki and Barnett and Ray Russ, and like just like a whole bunch of guys that you know were good ball players. And you step
Yeah.
into that realm, all of a sudden, that little duck spot base hit that you think will get there. You got man that could catch that ball, or that ground ball that you swear gonna sneak through that six hole. And you got man like Kenny Milligan gonna suck that up and try to first base and make you look like, yeah, you
Yeah.
ain't ready for this. That kind of how. So eh, like I said, it was good times, but it's good learning experience. Good learning experience.
That's true. That's true. You said you pitch. They always put the best athlete to pitch to play shortstop, and then they always make them pitch. So that says a lot about your skill set.
No doubt, man. I mean, even in my present role now, you're always looking, um, for the best athlete on the field, right? I mean, that's where your eyes are kind of gravitate to. And
Yeah.
most of the time in the middle of the field, whether it's shortstop, center field, on the mound or behind the plate. I mean, that's where most of your best athletes are when it comes to baseball.
That's true. That's true. So now, heading into college, how was those steps like? Like, did you get recruited? Did you go on an academic scholarship? Did you walk on a team? Like, how did that all happen?
And that's another good question. Um, so like when I finished in high school, like my mind wasn't set on any particular college per se. Like I was still like, having these dreams of playing in the big leagues and not even worrying about school. And
Yeah.
so like it was, and I ran into, I can't say I ran into, but came across this gentleman by the name of JP Mahalik, right? That was actually a former coach at LSU some, came to the Virgin Islands, ended up teaching at UVI, and just gravitated to the baseball field and then just began interacting with him. And he began helping us, coaching us, teaching us different things. And he was the one that like, hey, where are you thinking about going to college? And I was like, man, I ain't really thinking about that. Hey, I'm about playing TV. I can be the next Roberto Alomar. That was my mindset, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so he was like, man, you need to start looking into schools, and you might want to consider a junior college route. You know, it'll be a good introduction to school, competition wise, and he was the one that actually assisted me in that process and kind of expose these junior colleges, especially in Florida. Being from St. Croix, Virgin Islands, you're right there. You can go compete, get education. So from St. Joseph, I went to Broward Community College, which is in Davie, Florida. And if anybody ever been in Davie, Florida, ain't much people that look like us in Davie, Florida. Okay. Um, so I was fortunate though. I was fortunate. I had JD Clark and Glenn Barron for roommates. Right. We all ended up at Broward Community College together. And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to any of us at that point in our life. You
Yeah, that's
know,
amazing.
yeah, being, first time leaving home on your own, you get two of your homeboys with you that you could lean on. Um,
Yeah.
that was like probably one of the best decisions I ever made, especially in the early part of my life, going to Broward Community College, because it kind of exposed me to what was needed, what's going to take to compete at a higher level. And that was just a step up from where we were. So, you know, being exposed to weight training, being exposed to more conditioning. Literally, we were almost like a track team. I mean, we were running like crazy, man. When we got there, never forget Mike Hutch. Um, I ain't gonna say I used to piss you off as much, but there's a gentleman that I'm gonna mention his name anyway. JD Clark used to piss you off more than me. He used to make he vein in his neck pop out. But that's a little insight. But just being there was, I mean, it exposed us. Weight training, conditioning. Having to get your grades right in school to be on the field. Um, you know, having to understand that, yeah, you were good where you're at. No, you gotta be good again. It's like every challenge, every step. You gotta be able to prove that you belong there, right? I mean, that's the
That's true.
essence of competition. Being able to let people know and show them that, hey, I belong there. So that was the step to Broward. Stayed there for 2 years. Didn't play my first year because I fractured my foot. Played as a
Jeez.
sophomore. Then ended up at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And again, that's kudos to JP Mahalik that made that phone call. And
Wow.
the head coach at the time, Roger Kadar, took me sight unseen, scholarship in hand, and like, the rest is kind of history from there for me.
Did did playing in did playing in my league helped you when you get to college?
Yeah, no doubt. Because you're playing against bigger, stronger people, right? Bigger, stronger
Yeah.
men. So your game in itself and the competition itself, you had to step up. And, most of those guys are experienced, whether it be playing college or playing professionally. Um, so, you got playing against guys like Ellington Maynard that coming back, who ain't double A or triple A. You know, you're playing against like Geronimo Newton that, you know, a big left-hander throwing the ball hard, and you're going like, geez, I mean, this is what you're facing. So a lot of those type scenarios, help develop me as a player.
Yeah.
And then, what I learned in college, obviously, the more I came back and played in my league, I felt myself belonging more and being able to achieve and excel more because my experience got a little better, you know. Um, so, even going to Southern University, once I've left Broward Community College, like that was another step up because now I went from a junior college to a Division I program in a historically black conference, right?
Yeah.
Went to a
That's true.
HBCU. And, then all of a sudden, again, now from Broward to Southern, now I'm playing against a lot of people that look like me, right? With the same athletic ability, speed, strength, a whole bunch of twitch to the body. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, now you got to show that you belong again and take another step up to be able to compete. So, that was good. That was good.
Yeah, I would when I look back, I always think like, man, my league was definitely a benefit for a lot of us being so young, being 15 years old. Some start at 14, some start at 16, and being able to play against a lot of grown men, a lot of veterans, a lot of guys who played professional baseball. We had the benefits and luxury of that because growing up during them times, a lot of kids didn't have the opportunities like what we had. And it definitely prepared us. So when we go abroad and go overseas or in America and playing college baseball, it's like, man, you face better competition, with guys from the minor leagues coming back to play minor leagues. So that was always definitely a benefit for us, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. You mentioned guys, players that played in the minor leagues coming back, and even guys in college that are home for the break, and you know, being able to come and compete, and it's not only like you're competing against them, but also you find yourself like in that mind space where it's like I belong here. Even though these guys are competing at probably a higher level, you show that you can compete against them, and like you say, it give you a little bragging rights. So you see the man on the street, kind of, hey man, yeah, I knocked that ball on the street,
Yeah, yeah.
or I was able to pick that ball or dot and throw you out,
Yeah,
but yeah, that was good times for sure. Good times.
yeah, good times. So finishing up your college season, did you get drafted? Was scouts looking at you? Did you get any letters from any scouts, major league teams?
No, so when I completed my college career, the only option I had was potentially to sign as a free agent. And at that point in my life, I wasn't going to do that. I had just graduated. I had a degree in hand. Interviewing for different jobs that I was potentially going to take, which brings me to a next crossroad in my life, right? So I walk in my former head coach office. This is during like job fair week at the school where like I'm interviewing. I'm going back for second interviews with companies, and I'm sitting on his couch in his office, and he's asking me how things are going, and then, like I scratching my head, like, man, I get all these interviews. I don't know, which direction I'm going. I don't know which job I want to take. And he looked at me. He goes, "You're gonna be my next assistant coach." And I looked at him, and I was like, "No, I'm not gonna be your next assistant coach." And he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna be my next assistant coach." He says, "Think about it." So, I went back that night to my apartment and I thought about it for a while. And I mean, do I really want to go in this corporate world and wear a shirt, a tie, and, check in every morning at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 or 4? And I'm like, no, I really don't want to do that.
Yeah,
So, I end up taking a position as an assistant coach, working with the infielders and outfielders, and, spent 5 years doing that. I was very successful, and I think it was based on him giving me the opportunity to learn and be free to make mistakes as I learned,
Yeah,
especially with the recruiting process,
that's important.
figuring out, which players could fit our program, which players can't fit our program or wouldn't be a good fit in our program, um, and understanding, how to communicate with people from different backgrounds, and you know,
Yeah,
it was very eye opening to me, because then now all the things that were happening behind the scenes, now I was, privy to, from admissions to housing to making sure, everybody meal plan is taken care of, to scholarships, all these decisions are being made. Now I'm part of that conversation. So, that in itself, I mean, helped me to where I'm at now. But I'm not gonna fast forward to that yet, because the coaching experience that I had, was beneficial in the sense of Roger Kedar hired two young coaches that would with no coaching experience, right?
yeah,
And Barrett Ray, who was the other assistant coach, who actually played at Southern, who was a big left-handed pitcher, ended up being my roommate,
mhm,
and we're still good friends to this day. Um, and we learned together, right? And he ended up being a head coach at Alcorn State and Grambling, right? And I left Southern to become a scout. But that experience at Southern University, being able to go in a house, talk to a family, let those parents understand the type of program we're trying to run, the type of things we're trying to instill in making their young man a better quality human being, right? I mean, those are some of the qualities that we try to, instill in the people that came to Southern. And learned a lot of valuable lessons about personalities, about people on and off field, what makes them tick, how to better understand, you know, the person, not only the ball player, but the person. And I think those experiences over that 5 year period really helped me in my job now, because I still use some of the same things that I did then
mhm,
that I do now, you know.
yeah,
But came across a lot of good people, and one of them being Ralph Garcia. And if the people listening don't know who Ralph Garcia is, they need to look him up. You know, this man did a lot in baseball, uh, from a standpoint that he went to a historically black college in Grambling State. I ain't not gonna hold that against him. That's our arch rival, right? But he played a lot of years in the big leagues. But more importantly, he's one of few people that ever led the big leagues in hitting, right? That's an
wow,
accomplishment
big,
that, a lot
yeah,
of people probably won't recognize or probably won't even know the name. But it was through him that I was exposed to scouting. And it
mhm,
was in reference to one of my former coaches, Jerry Flowers, that was my assistant coach when I was at Southern. He took a job with the Cincinnati Reds, my senior year at Southern. And it was through him and Ralph Garcia that I was, my eyes were open to the Braves intern program, which I spent 2 weeks in Atlanta Braves Instructional League, right? And they essentially taught you about um, scouting. They taught you about player development. So we got like that ground floor introduction to both sides, PD and the scouting department. So I
yeah,
kind of like got this itch from that whole, event, that 2 week event. And it was through Ralph Garcia and Jerry Flowers that kind of like, hey man, you should check this out. This is something that could benefit your coaching. And that's the original reason I went, right? To learn new things to help our players. But then I left going like, no, I think I want to do this instead. And you know, I was actually over in Africa doing a program with Major League Baseball International,
oh wow,
and I was there to help with the All Africa Games, which is kind of like their quote unquote Olympics. And I was assigned to Team Nigeria. So I was there to help them, teach them baseball. Baseball at this time, this is what, 2003. So baseball at the time was a relatively new sport. But we did have some South Africans playing minor league baseball, but the sport itself was not like big on the continent, right? So it was a group of us that went over, about 20 of us that went over, and I was there, with Team Nigeria, and every once in a while, I check in emails. That's when emails were like the new in thing. Everybody
Yeah.
doing the email checks. Checking emails, and a friend of mine by the name of Jamie Bain. Why is Jamie Bain important to Brathwaite? I always tell this story when people ask me about scouting and how I got into scouting. Jamie Bain was a young scout with the Toronto Blue Jays at the time that moved into our area, and he came to Southern University, and we just kind of struck up a friendship. And he would ask me about players, and I'll tell him, like, hey, yeah, you might want to check out Mumba Rivera. He got a good arm, and he'll come back and, hey, man, I think you're right. This guy got a good arm. And then, so I'll help him out because of the teams we facing, and he'll call and ask me about different players and what I thought. And I would just tell him, like, not knowing really what I was doing, but I was just telling him like what my thoughts were. So I'm over in Africa, and he emailing me, and he's like, hey man, just so you know, I think my dad's gonna get this job with the Angels. I say, hey man, cool man, tell him congratulations, blah blah blah. Me ain't thinking anything of it. So long story short, I come back, and I'm at Southern University, resuming my role as assistant coach. And I got a phone call from Jamie. He was like, hey man, hey, my dad got that job, and just so you know, I told him to hire you.
Wow.
I said, what?
What?
I said, okay. And like somebody tell you something like that, you ain't putting too much stock into it, right? But that's how that literally that's how it went. So a couple of days later, I got a call from a gentleman by the name of Eddie Bain. Most people on this call probably know who Eddie Bain was, but he was a first round pick. I think with the Twins, I believe. Ended up pitching like in the big league. He went like from being drafted like to the big leagues. He went to the big leagues quick.
Quick, huh?
And spent a lot of time in baseball. Took over the scouting department for the Angels in 2003, right? So he calls me, and he was like, not like, he called me, and he said, I don't know where I'm assigning you yet, but I have two areas open. I have the Mid-Atlantic and the Upper Midwest. Do you have a preference of where you live? And I was like, I'm a single guy. I don't care, right? I said, no, I don't care. He said, okay, because I'm going to hire you. I just don't know where I'm assigning you yet. Now, I had 2 words with a man, never met the man before that I can remember. And he was like, he said, my son told me about how you took care of him, and, your intellect and how you identify players. And this is something that, I think could be valuable. He says, hey, do you know Ron Maroney? And Ron Maroney I knew because he played at Tulane, and he was a scout from the area. And at the time, he became what we call a cross checker for the Angels. And a cross checker is a supervisor, right?
Yeah.
So I said, yes. And he goes, reach out to Ron. He gave me his number, and he was like, I want you guys to meet and talk. I said, okay. So like a day later, I go meet Ron Maroney, and he lived in New Orleans, right? They actually live in the East. And so we're there, and we're talking, and, he's asking me about, describing players, and we're just talking baseball, really. And, he whipped out his computer, and like he showed me a report, and he was like, hey, do you know how to write a report? And the template was like almost identical to the stuff I learned with the Braves, right? So I was like, yeah, I could do that. So like cranked out the report, and he was like, "Oh, good." He said, "We're hiring you." I said, "What?"
Wow.
He said, "Yeah, we're hiring you." I said, okay." Like, again, like kind of throwing back, right? Because all this stuff is happening fast. I don't really know
Yeah.
like what I'm doing, but like they're like, "No, we're hiring you." And he goes, "You should live in Chicago." And if I didn't say that right, my wife would probably texting me. But I said, "Okay." He goes, "You're gonna have Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Okay." So the
Man.
next day, Eddie called me and offered me a contract, and you know, like literally, "Hey, go get him." I said, "Okay." So I turned in my resignation with Sun University and
Yeah.
took a flight up to Chicago. I had a cousin that lived up there. Kind of went through the city trying to find a place to live. Ended up getting an apartment right south of the city in a little town called Steger, Illinois. That's where I began my scouting career in 2003. It's been 18 years since, right?
Wow.
Um, that's that's something within itself. But um, you know that original core group I broke into baseball with, I'm forever grateful because they're the ones that made me who I am right now. My supervisor Ron, like literally, if anybody has been around me, especially like Christmas time when I come home, I ever had this American guy. He ain't American no more. He like half crew. He been coming on there. I mean, for over like 10, 15 years, he been coming St. Croix, right? So
Wow.
he's always with me. He'll call me his little brother. I call him my big brother. He'd like, I
That's
mean, he
nice.
literally looked out for me and kind of grew me in the scouting, and teaching me different things here and there. And but that initial group with the Angels was a special group, and we did a lot of good things during that time that I was there. And it showed up on the field. When you look at the caliber of players that were able to draft and develop, that was a good group.
So breaking in with the Angels, the scouting department, how was that first year scouting for you? It's kind of funny because it looked like in college you was already prepared to be a scout with you recruiting, because I want to say recruiting goes hand in hand with scouting in a way. You could pretty much say it's pretty much the same thing. So you was kind of already built for that. So how was that first year scouting, actually scouting professional baseball?
I just say this all the time to everybody I've ever had a hand in hiring. I think your first year is always your best year because
Mm.
you're the purest of scout at that point, right? You're not um,
Mm. It's deep.
consumed with the draft and the nuances of the draft. You're just
Yeah.
saying yes or no. And I think it was the easiest year for me. Like I would roll into some place and then looking at a player and then I would just say yes or no. And I still try to do that now, but now I'm in a different role, so my mindset's a little different. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to: can the player do it, or can't they do it? Do they bring value to the system, or don't they? That's it. And if you answer those questions, with the purest of thought process, then you ultimately get to the best result, right? As far as scouting, obviously the evaluation process is different than recruiting. Recruiting,
Okay.
you're trying to sell somebody on your program, sell them on, the attributes of your program, why they should come to your program, why they'll be a good fit in your program. From a scouting standpoint, the evaluation process is different. I'm not trying to attract you to the San Francisco Giants. I'm trying to figure out, can you be an asset for the San Francisco Giants? Can you be a
Mm.
prospect, or can you help our prospects develop, meaning an organizational player, right? So those are the categories I put players in: prospect or
Okay.
suspect. Only two.
Like nice.
And from an evaluation standpoint, and I could break it down in the simplest of terms from this stand from a like a hitter and a pitcher, right? So when I go to evaluate a hitter, obviously we evaluate position players in a five tool system, right? So the ability to hit for power, speed, mean running, arm strength, defensive abilities. Those are five tools. And we grade them out on a 20-80 scale. 20 being poor, 80 being excellent. So most systems now, like our new system now have, what you call a weighted average, meaning it's just not the raw tool grades that go into the evaluation, but there's other capacities and facets that go into the evaluation. So um, let's say you come across a hitter that you think, is an average hitter. Let's use position as center field, right? Because that's a premium position.
Yeah.
So if I think a center fielder will be an average hitter in the big leagues, meaning he's gonna hit 270 and he's gonna hit 20 home runs, let's say, right? And so he's like a plus runner, meaning a 60 or better. He have a plus arm, meaning a 60 or better arm, and he's a plus defender, right? That's an all-star type player, right?
Sure.
So that guy goes or should go in the top of the draft. But that's a whole different conversation we could get to in a minute. Um, and in the evaluation of that player, we're not only looking at his tool set, but obviously his ability to play the game, which now becomes skill, right? Your skill to play the game. Can you use your tools, right? You have tools, but can you use them? Because some people tools are still hanging in the tool shed, right? They have all this ability, but they don't have the skill to use
Yeah,
them.
that's true.
And into the evaluation goes their makeup or, what we like to call what drives the player, right? Your mental capacity to learn, to be
Mhm.
coached, your desire to play, the willingness, your work ethic. What do you do away from the field? How do you compete between the lines and outside the lines? I mean, all those things factor into your makeup because ultimately, from where we sit, those are the things that are going to help that player achieve his potential, right? And then you factor in the medical side of things. If that person have a medical, then you got to dive into it. What is that medical going to prevent that player from being able to achieve his potential? Meaning that center fielder have, you know, a bad knee. Is that knee going to ultimately, stop this guy from becoming, like the next Torrey Hunter or Mike Trout or, one of those type players?
Yeah.
Um, and then from the pitching standpoint, you have, same thing, it's five tools, but, the tools are different, right? For a pitcher, you're talking about fastball velocity, but also quality of fastball, meaning, the movement.
Yeah.
Is it straight? Is it flat? Is it tailing? Is it sinking? Is it boring? I mean, that's going to dictate if that fastball actually plays or if that fastball plays down or up. Then, what kind of secondary stuff they have, whether it be a curveball, slider, cutter, split,
Split the
change,
change.
all those things factor in. And then another big one is the command or control, the ability to throw strikes and also the ability to execute that pitch, meaning the command of that pitch. So when the catcher set up on the inside corner, that man ain't trying to ball on the outside corner. That's not command,
Hey, I
right?
laugh at sorry to interrupt you. I laugh at because that was my big problem, my command. I'm laughing because you're explaining it, and I used to miss my spots a lot of time. Well, go ahead. We got two
Yeah.
viewer questions, by the way, too. Anna, we got two viewer questions, but I'll let you finish and then we get to those questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. That 20-80 scale is used to evaluate the pitchers the same way it's used to evaluate the hitters. And if in our world now, you know, you're paid for velocity, but you're also paid to spin the ball, meaning have a good secondary pitch, right? And then
Yeah. True.
ultimately, the guys that have the velocity could spin the ball and throw strikes. those are the guys that normally go on the top of the draft. Normally. But again, that's a whole different conversation we could dive into, but from a like a macro ground floor level, I mean, that's evaluation. And what people have to understand about the draft is a accumulation of a year's worth of work. The process don't start in the spring. The process starts, from that player's sophomore year or junior year, from a high school standpoint, or freshman year, sophomore year in college. Like, we try to build up the track record and have a better understanding of that player's ability. But don't get me wrong, sometimes you walk into a place and somebody just lights you up, right? I mean, that's always a good feeling from a scout. And that's, in a nutshell, I mean, that's evaluation. Now, as far as the draft, like, the process itself, like I said, takes time. And then when we get down to the nuts and bolts of what we do as supervisors, at the end of the spring, leading up to the draft, we go out to San Francisco. We're out there for like 2 weeks. Essentially, it's a group of guys locked in a room, and we pouring over reports, we pouring over medical stuff, and you have all these boards with all these names on them, right? Because right now the draft is 20 rounds. It used to be a lot, but it's 20 rounds.
Yeah,
there's about probably 1,400 players that are going to be drafted, right? So we go through all these names and we have to rank all these players. And ultimately, what happens is, my region I supervise is the Northeast. You have a Southeast region, you have a Midwest region, you have a West region. So ultimately, when we come together, all these players that, I might really like, or my scouting director might really like, or one of our national supervisors might really like. I mean, we have to sit down and rank all these players and essentially, like, mesh all these names together to come up with that big draft board, which most years have anywhere from 150 to 200 names on it.
Wow.
And then all the other names are ranked in order, but they don't make the big board. So that big board, you should get about probably 4 to 5 draft picks before you have to go to the individually ranked positional boards, right? So, that's essentially what we do when we come together. And again, it's kind of a nutshell, kind of cram, but hey, I want to give the people a little bit of insight into that aspect of it.
Man, wow. That's eye-opening, man. That's definitely eye-opening. We have a question here from Persia. How much does attitude weigh on the scale?
Depends on what kind of attitude, Persia. It's like, a good attitude, meaning, a positive attitude, somebody that's in tune to what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and they use that as motivation. I think that's good, right? So that falls under makeup. A bad attitude, the guy that's slamming the helmet, the guy that makes an error, but instead of giving the ball back to the pitcher, he pissed off and he turned around and he threw the ball over center field. We don't want that, right? Because ultimately, when it comes to makeup, you're trying to make sure that that person not only can represent themselves, but represent you in the organization. So
it's very true.
When you put your name behind somebody or put your name on somebody, I mean, that name follows you as a scout, right? And the most important thing for me from where I sit is when that person walk in the clubhouse and is in the clubhouse and is part of our organization, he's a quality human being. Now, I don't get all of them right by no means, but a lot of the game more right than wrong, I feel good.
That's true.
So positive attitude is what we want.
Where they have a question here. I don't know the users. One of the questions is where JD Speed would rate. I don't know, where would JD Speed?
JD was probably beyond what JD's probably at his peak was probably an average runner. He's probably like a 6.78 to a 6.8 runner, which is average.
Okay.
And that's off the top of my head.
I like how you put that one. That's off on the top of your head. So we have a question here, and it's a three-part question. Some of the questions you answered earlier, but so I'll get to. Did you ever envision scouting would be your career path? And that's from our Carrion Shepherd.
No, I did not. I mean, when I started coaching, like I was content on being a coach. But when I got exposed to scouting, my heart just naturally gravitated towards that more. Like I was asked several times, like, do you want to go back to the field and coach? And the answer is unequivocally no. You know, it's like I rather do this. I rather find. It's always like you're hunting for that next good thing, that next best thing, that that player that could potentially change your franchise. That's the itch, right?
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate to be successful in this, but I also know that we're wrong more than we're right. So I'm like comfortable in my own skin, understanding and knowing that I know I'm not gonna be right most of the time. But if I'm wrong, if I'm right more than I'm wrong, then I'm having success doing what I'm doing.
That's true. That's true. We have a question here. What was the fastest 60 you ever rated?
That I have seen personally. I guess
Yeah,
that's the question.
I would. Yeah.
A 6.34, which was ran at an East Coast Pro Showcase a couple years ago by a young man by the name of Benny Montgomery. That's the fastest I've ever seen on my own personal watch.
Okay. Another question here. Were you with the Angels in 2011 when Mike Trout was drafted?
Hey, that's a great question. Um,
Yeah.
and the reason I say that is I think that was one of the best drafts ever. And I don't say that because I was with the Angels. I say that because that was the best draft ever from my experience. Um, that year in 2011, we drafted Randall Grichuk at 24. We drafted obviously Trout at 25, pick 25. We drafted Garrett Richards at pick 42. We drafted Pat Corbin at pick
Wow. Yeah.
I want to say
Man.
48. We drafted I can't even think of the left-handed name right now. I'm missing one. But in the top 50 at that year, we had, I think, 8 picks, if I remember correctly. And of that 8, I think 7 became big leaguers, and 3 out of 7 became all-stars. And obviously Mike Trout.
Yeah.
But so when I say like that was the best draft ever I was a part of, I mean it literally. Like that was the best draft I ever been a part of.
Yeah, because the names you just mentioned, man, I'm like, wow. I didn't realize all those guys was in the same draft. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess just because Mike Trout is just so big that it kind of, I might be wrong saying this, but it kind of overshadowed the draft as far as who all was in the draft from an outside perspective looking in, you know?
No, you're right. I mean, his success kind of dwarfed, everybody else's that had good careers or having good careers
Yeah.
because he's such an exceptional player. So but it happened. So
What's the highest achievement one of the players you scouted reached?
not a fair question, a good question. So in signing Garrett Richards, he became ace of the Angels before he got hurt. So that was a good achievement. Jordan Wallen became an all-star closer. That was another good achievement.
It's nice.
And Ryan Brazier pitched in the World Series and helped Boston win in 2018. And that's a funny story, but a good story. But he was probably one of my funnest drafts to ever sign, Ryan Brazier.
Brazier. Have you won? So it's two different people, same question. How many World Series rings do you have?
I I have 2 World Series rings,
And
and
those is with
yes,
the
they go ahead.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Um, And I was getting to the World Series, but since they brought up, I want to dive into it now, right? Um, talk about fun times, man. Talk about fun times. Um, a lot of people in my profession go their careers without winning one. I came to the Giants in 2010, hired by John Barr to initially supervise or cross-check the Midwest, which is in the middle of the country, right? At that time, I was living in Dallas, and I took the job, and all of a sudden, like a month later, we're in the playoffs, into the World Series, and I'm like, I'm meeting people for the first time with the Giants organization at the World Series, right? And I'm shaking hands, and I'm like, they're probably looking around like, who's the new guy, right? And so we won, and the following May, at our pre-draft meeting, right before the draft, they gave out the rings. And so I'm the new guy. I ain't getting no ring, right? Me ain't getting no ring. So I just staying back, and I watching everything that happening, and I will never forget our assistant general manager at the time, Jeremy Shelley. He walked over to me and he said, "Arnold, we're gonna win again. You're getting one of these rings."
Wow.
People always say stuff, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't lying. He knew something I didn't know at the time, right? And so it came 2012, and we're playing. I think 2012 was Detroit, and
Yeah.
here it is. We're in the mix of another World Series, and we're there, and I'm actually there with my now wife, which JD and Mo still give me drama and stress about, because I didn't invite them. And so we're there, and it's like freezing cold, Mumba. I mean, like freezing cold. And they put us on the highest deck they could put us on.
Jeez.
All they're away fans. They don't want them screaming and yelling, right? And
Yeah, Detroit.
so we're there, and we win in 4 games. So it's back to California, and go to the parade, and that in itself was an experience. When a city comes out and just represents and and embodies you as one of their own. And then 2014 playing Kansas City, obviously that series went back and forth,
That was a good
and
series, man.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then the horse, I call it a horse because without him we wouldn't have won. Madison Blumgarner
Yeah.
comes out the
The man's a
bullpen
beast.
and throws like I think 4 or 5 innings to shut them down, to seal our fate. And to feel that feeling again and know that what it means, um, you know, those are life experiences that you would never forget. So yeah, I have 2 World Series ring, and I'm very appreciative of
Man.
you know everybody that took part to make that happen. From Brian Sabian to Jeremy Shelley to Dick Tidrow to John Barr. All these names people don't know, but they need to be mentioned because they're the ones that put those teams together. And then obviously the biggest compliment goes to the players on the field, because without them you don't win, right? That's what this is all about, is the players on the field.
That's true. That's true. Was Brian Wilson with the Giants when you was there?
Yeah, Fear the Beard. Yeah, he was there.
He
He
was
was there
there.
in 2010. He was there in 2012. He wasn't there in 2014.
Okay, okay. I played with him in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
I don't
So
want to hear any stories.
no, no stories. Yeah. So you know how he is. But
Yeah. That was
yeah.
trying to play with Brian Wilson. Yeah, yeah. Not good. Well, good,
Man,
but not good. Good, but not
we
good.
have a viewer here, Carrier. She says she was at the 2014 parade in San Francisco.
Outstanding. I hope she had fun.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's amazing, man, to win a World Series, not just one but two, man. You won it with a man. You won it with a great franchise too, man. Great
You
franchise,
know,
historical
it,
franchise.
and it was history. I mean, winning 3 in 5 years,
Yeah,
that's tough to do, man. Because baseball is such that every year, through free agency, teams have a ability to restock their teams. That um, we had a strong nucleus, a strong core, led by Buster Posey, Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford. I mean, that was the core of our team, position player wise. And then you got Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, Madison Baumgartner, Jeremy Affeldt, and then Brian Wilson, like to shut the door. Like those teams were good. I would say that to pivot to say right now, we're trying to get back there. It's gonna take a
yeah.
little bit. It's gonna take a little time. It's gonna take a little time, but we're working on it. I mean, we have a new front office that took over 2 years ago now, led by Farhan Zahidi and Scott Harris, who's our president of baseball operation, Farhan, and then Scott is our general manager. I mean, I have a new boss now, Michael Holmes, who runs our scouting department, who actually came over from Oakland. Um,
Okay.
so it's different, but it's good. So um, but we're working on getting that team back to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, man, definitely got to make that happen. Got to make that happen. We dependent on the scouts. The scouts. The pressure is on.
Yeah, the pressure is on. The pressure is on.
Yeah, yeah. Did you we I don't think we ever crossed paths in the minor leagues, right? Because I was always in the West Coast because I was with Seattle. So I always we played against the Angels a lot in the minor leagues and San Francisco. But I don't
Yeah.
think
No,
we ever
never
crossed paths.
cross paths. Seeing you
Are you,
play live, I don't think I would have remembered. Seeing you
yeah.
play live, I probably would have remembered. But no, we never crossed paths. And I always
Because you
look
said
out for any players that I know of, like from the territory that I'm going to be playing, and um, once I transition from the draft into scouting the minor leagues and big leagues, I always keep a tab out for um, our young players that might be out.
yeah, I was just gonna ask you that if like you scouting and if you like did you cross paths with any players from the Virgin Islands as far as you come into the game just to just to scout or take a look?
Yeah, not recently.
Okay.
Not recently. Like from my experiences, like with players in the territory, we when I was with the Angels, we had a good program going where every winter we would come down and we had this program for the kids where we were trying to. My goal was to give those kids the same opportunities as the kids in the mainland, right?
Yeah.
And that was for the older players, right? The younger players, it was more about exposing them to baseball and um, just letting them see that their faces that look like them, and they could do, whether it's be playing in the big league or do something like what we're doing. And that was a great thing that was started back in I think 2003 or 2004 through Housing, Parks, and Recreation as well.
Yeah.
Um, Commissioner Hopkins at the time, along with R.L. Abel and Bokeem Martin, you had Ellington Maynard, you had Jeff Clark. All those people would help us. Um, and Assistant Commissioner Smith would help us like put these camps together. We'd talk to parents, we'd talk to coaches. And then for the bigger guys, we're doing tryouts just to identify players and potentially draft guys, right? So it was fortunate where we drafted Timothy Brewer, we drafted James Sneed, um,
Mm.
two players right from the Virgin Islands, right from St. Croix, one from St. Thomas. Um, so I mean that was good in itself because then it gave
Yeah.
the territory exposure, it gave the players exposure. That same group, same age bracket, You had Jabari Blash, you had Jarrell Cotton, you had Jermaine Cotton. Um, and there's one more name I'm missing that ended up playing. The Thomas boy, I can't remember. I call him boy, young man. He ended up getting drafted originally, I think by the Braves, and ended up getting to the big league with the Braves, and then being traded, I think. But that group was a good group of guys during that period of time in the territory.
Okay. We have a we I know we pro- we I know we have a viewer. Her son plays baseball, and we might have more viewers that some of their kids probably play baseball too. What's some advice you would give them that their kids should focus on as far as baseball? You know what they should focus on to probably help them develop as a better baseball player, to be more attractive as far as getting recruited for college, or even recruited just even scouted to probably hopefully get an opportunity to be drafted.
Yeah, fair question. The biggest thing is to have fun right now, right? Baseball is a game. And I think what I've seen is people lose sight of that because
Mhm.
it's travel ball mania right now, which I
Yeah,
don't totally agree with. So right now I say have fun. I mean, the younger, especially the younger, have fun and work on your skill. You just can't baseball in a game you could just play on Saturdays and think you're gonna be good. You got to actually work on baseball, right? From taking swings to developing your arm strength to developing your speed to developing your athleticism and your agility and um, you know those type of things that you could do in your backyard. Like, I mean, I don't know how many kids actually work out in their backyards now. It's like they need somebody to go on a field with them instead of, hey, find a wall, take a rubber ball, trade off the wall, work on your hands and feeling ground balls. Taking dry swings in your yard with a broomstick. Like, people don't do that stuff no more, right? And it's kind of crazy, but those are some of the ways you know I develop my skills because at times baseball is a game where, like basketball, you just grab a ball and try it up to the hoop by yourself, right? So sometimes you gotta find ways to make yourself better by yourself. You know,
that's true.
I remember, from a young age, like once I got to high school, doing my push-ups and sit-ups in my room at night, trying to get stronger. You know, now you have all these personal trainers, and all these kids have access to all these, whether it's Planet Fitness or Lifetime Fitness, so they have access to those things. So take
That's
advantage
true.
of them. The other thing is watch baseball. I mean, everybody said
Yes.
baseball boring. Well, if you want to be good at it, you gotta know what's happening, right? You gotta know what's going on. So watch baseball. You gotta, learn from the best. And I say that in quotes, right? Like, that's
That's
how you
true.
get better. Developing your skill, your knowledge of the game, and not being um, just limited to where you're at. You know, you gotta think outside the box when it comes to developing yourself and understanding that everybody have limitations. You had limitations as a player. I had limitations as a player. And the sooner you can identify that, and then, but still continue to work on the things you do well, the better you'll be as a player, because then you can
Yeah.
understand yourself more. Um, One of the biggest things is developing yourself as a person. Finding that independence, finding that work ethic, finding the mindset to want to learn, to want to get better. A lot of people say they want to get better, but somebody trying to explain something to them, and but they want to do it their way. Well,
Yeah.
it can't be your way or the highway. If you want to learn and somebody trying to identify something that you might not be doing, um, that can ultimately benefit you, then take it with a grain of salt. It might not work for you. Everything that somebody tell you might not work for you, but understanding like what works, what don't, is another part of learning and developing. And I think a lot of people just, well, he tried to show me something, I don't think it right. Well, then that's not for you. And baseball in a sport where you could try and clone people. You know, baseball is a sport where you gotta develop your skills and tools and for you, because as individuals we're all different. You know, our bodies feel out physique and physiology works different. So it's like understanding how you move and what's good for you ultimately, you know, is a big part of it. But from a especially the youth, like from that 9 to 12 age bracket, have fun, man. Play the game. Then once you get away from that age bracket, don't stop playing. Because that's where we lose a lot of players. Because everybody is like, well, it's boring, or I'd rather play football or basketball, or
Yeah.
you know, no, you know, mom or dad can't get them to where they need to be. So it's like become problematic, you know. But once you get to that bracket from 13 on, don't stop playing. Um, and just continue to find ways to get better.
Man, that's some important stuff you just said, man. Man, that is so true. That is so true. Um, we have we have two questions that's the same, and then we have a question I was supposed to ask earlier, and I forgot. What was your fastest 60 time? I
Which one of them
apologize.
guys asked that question? I'm
I
just
can't see
playing.
the yeah, I can't see the name.
I
But I
just
apologize because they asked that a long time ago. So I definitely apologize to that viewer for
I
asking that.
was a
So yeah,
6'5" runner, right?
that's fast, right?
Every day of the week, and probably twice on Sunday. Um, I got a funny story for you when it talks to running on speed, right? And some of the people probably listening to this probably know, but Kevin King. I don't know how many people know Kevin King. But Kevin King
Yeah.
was a good ball player on St. Croix. Older brother Calvin King was good too. Kellen King, I mean, was a good ball player. And Kevin King and myself, we always had these races, right? These competition races, right? So we ran one time and he win, and then we ran another time and then I win. So it was like 1-1. So no, you know, competition, right? They can't
Yeah.
sit like that. So at the time I was working, I was in college at the time because probably my first year in college. No, it was second year in college. Probably my second year in college. I was working summer job. You know, came home. You gotta get a little summer job. So I working at workman's
True
compensation,
that.
right?
True that.
Um, I doing a Byron rest in peace. I was grateful
Rest in peace.
because I
Yeah.
always had a chance to work with her, and so I'm walking home, you know, from the shanty coming down by Wimbar Park, and yeah, that Monday in the park, and Kevin King there, and he's like, "Hey, you ready for this race or what?" No, you know, I dressed, right? I dressed. I was like, competition, right? Mumbai, we ain't backing down.
Oh, you
Hey,
can't back
ready?
down. Yeah.
There we go. So here's me. This is like 5:30, you know, 6 o'clock, 5:30 in the afternoon. Kevin and I, we the to the I mean, people know Win Ballpark to the back by the field where it's kind of the open area.
The open. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here it is, your boy coming on. He closed now, right? Because I dressed, shoes off, socks off, pants off, shirt off. There we go. You know who won the race, right, Mamba?
You win. You win. You got it. You get it.
Story done right there. And people can back that up, and that's a true story.
Wow.
True story.
You were fast. You were fast.
Kevin King could back that up too. He might not want to admit it right now, but that's my boy. That's my boy. He's
Uh,
doing big things, by the way.
yeah.
He's
Big
doing
up
big things.
Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah. True
So
story.
we have this question, and you know, why don't you agree with Travel Ball, and please share your perspective on Travel Ball. That's from Ari Lynch and Persha.
Yeah. My dilemma with travel ball is it takes away from learning how to play baseball, because most travel ball teams is like you show up on the weekend, you play with a bunch of guys you don't know. You know, pitchers might throw an inning or two, they bounce, they gone. You know, John Doe might get a couple of bats, he bounce, he gone. So it's not like a cohesive unit that actually teaches you the game. It's exactly what it says. It's travel baseball. So to me, the benefit of a travel team um, is for those that are looking for exposure for like colleges, because a lot of those playing little tournaments where college coaches recruit players, right? And then you got to be on this elite team, whether it be the Canes or Team Elite, or, you ain't playing on no PG purple team and there was some good group of guys, right?
Yeah.
My biggest dilemma with travel baseball is expensive. You got to pay to be on the team. Then you got to pay to travel. Then you're paying for your equipment. Like, I don't know most listeners here, but I ain't got that kind of money to give away, right? And but that's what everything is kind of come to now. So it's like, oh well, he played on this travel team, and I remember I was at this tournament one time, and I was kind of off to the side, but it had like this family that wasn't too far from me, and like I was, I packing up my bag and I getting ready to wheel out, and this lady asked me, "Well, you're not gonna stay for the end of the game?" I said, "No." She goes, "Well, why not?" I said, "Ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't care who wins and lose. That ain't why I'm here. I mean, you guys here who wins and lose. I ain't that. That's not why I'm here." And I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was, she asked, so I had to tell her.
Yeah.
But from a financial standpoint, from a standpoint of development, I'm not a fan. Now, if you find a program that's going to teach your son how to play baseball and it's economical to you, then I said, I'm all for it. But you show me that program, they ain't to make money. I mean, that's why they're there, right?
Yeah.
To cut to the chase.
That's true. That's true. It's turned into a business, a money business, as far as, and not even just baseball, but because my son plays basketball and I see it every day. It's a business, it's a money business, So, and everything you said is 100% true. Now, with travel ball, it would it be better if it's a travel ball team where it's a lot of structure and is the team that's going to be traveling and is the same team. They're not incorporating players here and there, as far like you said, because some travel ball team players come and they bounce. You might not ever see them again. They come together, a little exposure, and you don't develop that type of team chemistry structure. And some of the kids that's more on the low end is just there, and their opportunity is taken away from those elite players because of the travel ball team more into the money and not into the kids itself. You know.
I agree 100%. I mean, if you find a team, number one, you're going to plan that ain't going to have you just there because they collecting a check. Two, that's going to help you develop as a player, meaning give you the reps you need, whether it be at the plate or on the mound, and give you quality instruction. Like who's the one that's running the team? Who's going to be coaching the team? If they're traveling, is that traveling going to benefit you as a player? You know, and again, from a recruiting standpoint, I get it, because everybody want their son to go to a school. That's another whole different topic. Okay, you want to go to a school, but what school you want to attend? Okay, there's a school for everybody, right? I always say that, whether it's junior college, Division
That's very
One,
true.
Division 2, Division 3, there's a school for everybody. You want to go someplace where you can play, where you could develop. You don't develop in baseball by sitting on the bench, right? That's just the long and short of it. You got to be able to go out there and compete, to hone your skills. I mean, that's what you know. That's one of the things you have to do in baseball to get better. So if you're gonna be on a travel ball team, just make sure that your money is well spent. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
That's true. We have a question here from Pershaw. So, what's the alternative to get kids exposure and competition?
When you talk about exposure, I mean, are we talking about for college, or are we talking about like for my level? Because that's two different type of exposure, right? So when I go see a player, I'm going to see a player for the draft. And what happens is like a lot of word of mouth. Like if, for instance, if I go see your son play, right? Like your son was a baseball player, but
Yeah.
I see JD Clark playing shortstop. Your son might be the prospect on the team. JD Clark might be a good college player, right? So I might pick up the phone and call Carrick Jackson at Southern University and say, "Hey, man, the guy shortstop at Central High School that I think you should take a look at. He could be a good benefit to your program, right?" I've done that. I do it all the time because I know a lot of college coaches where I could just reach out. I would tell you from a parent standpoint, you could videotape your kids, um, send them to the particular camp for that school that they want to attend, because those schools have camps too. Now, those camps might cost you a little bit of money, but it ain't gonna cost you what you're gonna pay to go to a summer program. So you go to that camp for that school, you're exposing yourself to that particular program, and then the groundwork starts from there. The communication starts from there. You can always write the coach, send them an email, inquiring about their program, um, seeing will they be able to come out and watch your son play. And again, if you could send video, that helps because they can eyeball, what they're seeing, and they might like it to the point where they want to come out and take a look at your kid. When I go to see a player, I'm told like, hey, I have this young man by the name of Momo Rivera. We already have like track record history on him. We want him to go. We want you to go take a look at him and tell me what you think. So those are two type of exposures, right? From a college standpoint to what I'm trying to get accomplished. Again, our job is to look for prospects to ultimately make the San Francisco Giants better. That's our job, long and short.
That's true. You mentioned something earlier with baseball, and I like to say is that baseball is one of the good sports that sometimes going to a JUCO or going to like a low level D1 or D2 doesn't really hurt. I mean, to me, it doesn't really hurt you because once you have this skill, eventually somebody's gonna see you. For instance, like if you throw 95 miles an hour, I mean, if you throw 95 miles an hour and you got good control, you probably gonna go to a D1 school. But say you go to like a JUCO and then you develop your arm strength, develop within that year, and the next thing you know, you climb the gun. You being to that school, you still probably gonna get looks just because you develop as the year go on, and then a scout will see you. So that's the good thing about baseball, that it doesn't hurt you with the level of competition, I would say, compared to like a basketball. Like
I
if
would
you go
agree
to like Duke,
100%.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Like I said, there's a school for everybody. And the biggest
yeah,
thing is finding a place where you're comfortable and finding a place where um, that you're gonna play. I mean, you mentioned going to a junior college and developing, and then all of a sudden you're considered a prospect. But even from that junior college, you take a next step and go to a Division 1, right? And then
it's
still
true.
hone your skills, and then you still have the ability to get drafted or potentially finish your career at a Division 1 and get a degree. Um, you mentioned a good point where, um, sometimes it takes time for the light bulb to go off, for you to figure things out, for you to become um, the player that you ultimately gonna be, right? And that's what we're looking for. When I sit down and I write the report on the player, it's not about today per se. It's about 3 to 5 years from now on the big league level, what I think that player is gonna be.
We got some viewer questions, but I wanted to touch on what you just said because I remember when I went to JUCO to play basketball, and I got redshirted, ended up playing baseball, and they put me to pitch because I had a good arm, and I pitched like maybe like 19 innings in the season, and I ended up getting drafted. But the scout called me, he was like, "Hey, we selected you, but we're not gonna sign you. We see the potential in you. You have a good arm, you got raw talent, blah 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 and stuff, but." Your future is bright, etc., etc. So we're gonna have you as a draft and follow. We're gonna send you back to college and have you get more innings underneath your belt, have you honed your delivery, your skill set, etc. So you touching that was something that I actually went through, and a scout told me the same thing. As far as the potential, I wasn't there yet, but they still drafted me. Based on the potential, where they see me as years later on.
Yeah, I mean that's another good point, Mamba, you brought up with the draft and follow. I mean, unfortunately now with the new collective bargaining agreement that we have, there's no more draft follow, right? So
It's
that
tough, yeah.
um, that aspect of the draft no longer exists. They were actually trying to bring it back, but obviously the two sides have to agree. That's how baseball works, right? The strongest union in the world, so
Yeah.
they say. Um,
It's true.
they, but with the draft and follow, that was an avenue where you were able to draft a player. You held the rights for a year. Normally, they go to a junior college, they spend the time there for a year, and then ultimately, you still had the chance to sign that player without that player going back into the draft. So, I mean, that was a good option for a lot of players and for a lot of teams because then it gives you a little more time to evaluate the player, essentially, where you have it. So, I think, I hope that at some point in time we bring it back because it was a good thing for baseball, especially with the athlete.
It was, yeah, that's true. It was. Okay, so we have a viewer question. This one is from Dwayne. Do you see yourself moving from being a scout, and if so, what opportunity would you want?
Yeah. I don't know if I should say that out loud.
Yeah, you don't have to if you don't
um,
want to. Everybody be watching our podcast. So ESPN, Fox, MLB
oh,
Network. You
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I don't know if I could. Okay, let me touch on that a little bit. So, um, I've been cross checking now for like over the last 10 years, right? Which during that period of time, I've had some opportunities to interview for other jobs. Um, I didn't get those jobs, but then it kind of opened my eyes to a different mindset and process where my direction, career path has kind of changed. Um, Originally, when I started on this track, I wanted to run um, a baseball operations department to the point now where I still want to be intricate in the department, but I don't necessarily know if I want to run the department right now. If that makes sense. I think baseball landscape have changed some. Um, Obviously, I went to Southern University. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. Hint, hint. And it's like it's a different landscape. I'm just speaking truth to power.
Yeah, I
But
got you. Yeah.
I still understand that my skill set in itself is unique because like the ground floor I came in on still exists, right? You still have a need to be able to go out and tell you who can play and who can't. Um, Obviously, the new wave of evaluation when it comes to the data driven teams and not like we don't use data. We use data a lot because that's part of the evaluation process of a player, right? Is to
Yeah, that's
understand the
true.
analytics, understand the metrics, because it's a different way of looking at things. And just because it's different don't mean it's wrong. It just gives you another avenue in which to help you evaluate the player. And that's the direction baseball is going in now. But, you know, I think it's going to come back around. Cool. I hope it comes back around to where it's more balanced, where it's more even as far as,
Yeah.
evaluation process. But like, we're to the point now where our draft, we put this draft board together, but we also run what you call a model, right? And this model is generated by all the reports we put in the system, and then um, it kind of runs the draft for you. So it could literally line the board up for you just based on all the evaluations you have in. Now
Wow.
we're a team where we don't strictly do that. We still kind of do it the old-fashioned way, but we also look at the model to say, okay, well, why does the model have, you know, Momo Rivera over Geronimo Newton. We don't like him like that. We like Geronimo Newton over Momo Rivera. So it helps us to look at players such as that and then make the adjustment manually. And so we still have the draft boards to the point where we control how the players come off the board, if that makes sense. There are some teams that strictly run a model. So if the model said, take Midre Cummins right now, they're taking Midre Cummins right now. And that's how they operate their draft. So to say that technology and analytics aren't on the amateur side, it's definitely not the case. We're very much a part of the whole new landscape of baseball.
Man, I could this talk. When you talk about, man, you could have a conversation and it's like for a long time. But I'm gonna get to the I have to get to the viewers' questions. So, man, that's a good conversation to have. What's the earliest a youth should start playing baseball?
Was that to start?
Yeah, to start playing baseball. That's a question from Dwayne.
8 years old. You're well. You could play. If you're playing in your yard or you're playing amongst yourself, like I had a bat and a ball in my hand from the time I could remember, right? But when you talk about being organized, the league starts at 8. Starts at 9. Some people play at 8. It depends, but you have like little T-ball leagues you could play at an earlier age that could be beneficial to you. Then you kind of gravitate to coach's pitch. Then you get to the league where kind of on your own. So, for the most part, I would say 8 years old is a good age to start like competitively playing, or your little pee-wee or little coach's pitch or T-ball league or something like that. And then you gravitate to the little league by age 9.
Okay. We have a question here from Carrion. Is there competition between scouts in drafting players? What is the experience like?
It's a very good question. It's a fair question. Yeah. Yes, the short answer is yes, because we kind of run in the same circles, right? And we kind of chasing the same players. So ultimately, it's like trying to beat the next guy to the player, meaning get that player drafted and signed by your organization, right? It always doesn't work that way because ultimately you have a scouting director that makes that decision who to take. My job is to just give him input, present the player as best as possible with the pros and cons and understanding ultimately what and how our organization look at players. Because player A might be a consideration for us, but it might not be for like the Cardinals or the Braves or the Dodgers, So that in itself, is different. Some teams gravitate to high school players. Some teams gravitate to college players. Some teams will take a high school or a college player. So you have those kind of differences between clubs, and it's not always the same. But yes, we're very competitive because we want players. Our job is to go find talent to help our major league team be productive and win.
Another question. Do you talk to other scouts about players, or everything stays in-house?
Fair question. So for full disclosure, there's only a handful of people I talk to players about. And it's not like I'm giving them information per se. It's more of like if somebody asks me a question like, hey, did you see Momo Rivera? And I could say no. But if I know the person, because then they're trying to figure out, have I seen them already? And then if I've seen them, like, the Giants must be on them,
Got you. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
If I know the person well, I'll be like, yeah, I saw Momo Rivera. And they'll be like, okay, well, should I go see him? And I say yes, or I might say no, or I might not answer. Like if I know the person, like there's only a handful of people that I will be like, yeah, man, you need to go see him. Because then that's telling them like, hey man, this guy is a good guy that's probably gonna fly off the board. And I'm not gonna let one of my good companions in the game get blindsided. Be like, you might want to go see Mumba Rivera. You know? So I'm not giving him any details on like my evaluation of the player. But I would tell, like, if I run across Ron and he was like, hey man, did you see Mumba? I'm hearing a buzz about him. I go, yeah, you should go see him. You know, a situation like that.
Okay.
And likewise, if I'm hearing buzz on a player I haven't seen, there's a handful of people I can call and be like, hey, do I need to go see X, Y, and Z? They were like, yeah, you need to run in there quick, or, you know, yeah, you could take your time, man. That he's not like, you know, like a top 5-round player or a top 10-round player. He's somebody that might come later in the draft type guy. You know, that kind of information we do share.
Sure. So basically, so it's pretty much some guys in the scouting realm is like, okay, I trust that guy's eyes. You know, I trust what he sees in a player, and you kind of run it by that person, etc., etc. Even if, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was about to say absolutely right. Like, there's certain guys I trust, and like I said, I could count them on 3 fingers. Outside my organization, yeah. Like, I could count them on 3 fingers. Like, I could pick up the phone right now, and if they tell me go, I'm going. If they say don't go, I ain't going. And then obviously there's the people you work with that, you know, your teammates essentially, that, I mean, you trust their word over anybody else's. But yeah, outside my organization, there are a handful, less than a handful of people I can call and be like, yeah.
We have another question. I looking at the time because I know we
We're good. We're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. We have another question here on. You touched on this pretty much, but I'm gonna still ask it. You know, out of respect of the viewer because they asked the question. What role does analytics play in baseball scouting?
Oh, very big. I mean, in baseball overall, you can't go to any scouting department right now that doesn't have an analytical staff, right? Some are bigger than some use it more than others, but you can't go to any part of a baseball organization and they're not using it, whether it be on the pro side or the amateur side.
That's true. You talking about the analytics, and you mentioned about the draft and how we'll, like, you know, automatically put this player. You know what's funny is that with the old fashioned way, you get to see players in the heat facing adversity. For instance, if it doesn't track a player, for instance, if a player like, you know, a baseball game as a pitcher, you know, some innings is just going to be rough. You know, it never goes smooth. So it doesn't see that part of the game where when a pitcher goes through I'm gonna use a pitcher for example, like goes through a rough start. Maybe he threw a strike and the umpire called it a ball, it's a tight game, 1-0 game, etc. And he goes in a funk and maybe walks another batter. And next thing you know, you got runners on first and second, no outs, and then sacrifice bunts, runners in scoring position, you know. And just because of, you know, maybe a bad call of the umpire sway the game in a different direction, then that it doesn't measure the competitive of the pitcher. Whereas, is he gonna let that bad call affect him, or is he gonna rise above the situation and lock down and then come out of the inning? That's where I don't see, they don't see that part of the game.
No doubt. And I mean, I guess the best way to kind of dive into this is the computer have no feeling, right? It has no gut.
Yeah.
So when I walk out of a park from watching somebody play, obviously my eyes see this talent. My brain computes, you know, what I see. You know, my heart tells me something about the player, but ultimately my gut tells me or feels, you know, like when I walk, I have a good gut instinct of, is this guy going to be good or is he not going to be good for the Giants? Not saying that that player can be good for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know,
It's true.
and just to touch on what you mentioned, like, so with the modeling incorporates the grade you put on the player, how you evaluate the player. It does incorporate some kind of makeup capacity, but again, it's running a program, so it's looking for like certain words to describe players. It's looking for
Oh, okay.
unless it's a like a specific tool grade or category grade. So, for instance, when I go see a player, we have a grade that um, talks about the probability of that player becoming what I think he can become, whether it's poor, fair, or excellent, right? Then we have a grade for the look that I got on that player. Was it cold today? Was it raining today? Was the breeze blowing 45 miles an hour and all of a sudden, the ball blowing all over the place and
Yeah.
just in the eye and so that grade lets them know, hey, today I saw this game, but the environment wasn't great. So you got to put that into consideration in the report, right? And then ultimately you put all of that in the body of the report, which comes out in a summary. But so when we get to the point about talking about the player, the model can't feel or see all of that. So it's raw data that goes into the model and it spits it back out. It's no different than somebody writing a program for your computer. It's just X's and O's or ones and zeros, I think. When you're writing a program, right, that makes your screen look the way it looks. So the model is doing the same thing. It's taking the raw data and then giving you back what it ultimately thinks it is based on what's crunched out, right? Um, but what we're doing is what we call massaging the list. We incorporating all the other stuff, like our years of history watching ball players, the ones that made it, the ones that didn't, why certain players make it, why certain players don't. The model can't tell you that.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
it can't tell you that, hey, today this dude girlfriend dumpy and he had like one of the worst days ever
Yeah.
and like he lost. You know what I mean? He like deer in headlights, right? It can't measure that. It can't measure, somebody losing a parent or a loved one and they just they're not themselves right now. It
That's
can't it
true.
can't measure any of that. It can't measure, the fact that the coach yelling at this dude every day and he just down in the dumps. And maybe a change of scenery helps this young man to move on and go past where he's at and achieve something that's great. Because you and I know we all don't learn the same. Some
That's
people could
true.
take that yelling and screaming. Some people need a pat in the back. You know, some people gonna need more of a softer voice. Some people learn from seeing. Some people go tell them what to do and they do it. You know, so the model can't give you all that. So, like I said, you know, my skill set's a little different, but it's still relevant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Man, that's pretty amazing, though. That's pretty amazing. Who
I
has
appreciate that, man.
who has been the biggest influence in your life, or some of the individuals have been a big influence in your life?
From a professional standpoint, or just overall?
We we both we go both.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, God bless her soul, and my father, God bless his soul, but my parents,
Yeah,
um,
it
you
was
know,
this ones.
um, like growing up with my mother and, like literally growing up in a single parent home and not really getting and being in touch with my father until a later age and, learning so much from him in a short amount of time.
Mm,
And, that was like important to me. But the combination of the two and all the life experiences, it prepares you for what's to come, but you don't know it's preparing you. So without those influences, it would be a lot different for me, I think. You know, mentioned my brother and my sister earlier, like, I mean, their professionalism, their achievements, and I'm the youngest of three, so it's like, always kind of, that sibling rivalry, that sibling competition, like everybody talking about how fast I am or was, like my sister was faster than me. You know what I mean? So it was like, I mean, I gotta be able to beat you at some point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
that's
that was
true.
like,
Yeah,
and then my brother like introducing me to baseball and introducing me to all other things like music, horse racing, like all these other things, like so my influence is kind of um, wide and broad, but like when it comes to baseball, I mentioned several people earlier, but you
yeah,
know, um, Jimmy Harris, God bless him. You know, Horace Clark, God bless him. Elmo Plaskett, God bless him. Like those are the ones that are have gone, but then Kenny Clark and Glenn Byron and Mencho Camacho and you know. Um, CP Mihalchek, Roger Kadar, and then from the professional ranks, obviously Jamie Bain, Eddie Bain, Ron Maroney, who was my supervisor for a long time and one of my best friends in baseball. Um, John Barr, who hired me originally with the Giants to bring over here. Um, you know, and then I got people like Quincy Boyd and um, Dan Nellum and Stu Smothers, like Jerry Flowers and Clarence Johns and Kevin Ham. I'm like, dude, I could go on and on and on when it comes to professionally. Like, so
yeah,
many people have touched me that, you know, the list is endless because, it's like anything else. When you stop learning, then, what good are you, right? So, like, this has been a continuous 18-year span of learning and learning from different people and learning different ways of doing things and just trying to keep adjusting and and stay relevant. That's the big thing now.
yeah. That's true. That's true. How you mentioned earlier you went to Africa. How was that experience like? Like how what did you learn? What opened your eyes about Africa and what did you learn that you will carry on for the rest of your life just in your experience being in Africa?
Hey man, great question. It ain't like TV. I was fortunate, Mumba. I was there twice. Um,
Wow, nice man.
I spent some time in Abuja, Nigeria, and I spent some time in Johannesburg and Pretoria, South Africa. So I went to Africa twice with Major League Baseball International, and you know the people are warm. They're humble. They're open to learning. Um, you know, it was just an eye-opening experience, and I can't even tell you why I did it, other than the fact that like you know it was an opportunity to teach and like open some other people's eyes to baseball. And then when I got there, my eyes were open to a whole different continent and different people and languages and dialects and just knowing like when will I ever be able to do this again, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, I was able. That was at Abuja in 2002 or 2003. Then a couple years later, I went back um, and to Johannesburg, South Africa, and spent some time in Pretoria as well. And you know, was able to see parts of the world that on any other basis I probably would never see or never would have seen without you know baseball. Um, so that was fun. That was fun. Different but fun. Great experience. You know, different than traveling like in, Central and South America, but still, it was good.
How was the food? How was the food like over there?
Anybody that knows me knows like I'm a very particular eater, right? So like I kept it very neutral, right? I kept it very neutral. It was some things that I would just never touch, like ever touch. Like I would look at it and be like, no, thank you, right? But then you just try and keep it neutral. And anytime you travel internationally, right? You just try not to get sick, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the
that's
the whole
true.
crux
Yeah,
of the thing,
yeah.
So it's like, uh, just try and keep it neutral and eat simple is the best way to put it. Eat simple.
I got you.
But when I came back, I did eat like a hamburger, which you go away for days. Like I think I was spent 14 days both times, and like there's certain things you just crave for, like when you come back, to the United States, and like that was one of the things, like a steak or a hamburger or something like that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, fun times.
While coaching at Southern, was Ricky Weeks there?
Hey man, you bring up a name that um, I don't know how many people know this story. So if you don't mind, indulge me for a minute. Um, Ricky Weeks was arguably the best player I ever coached, talent
Mhm.
wise, and the best human being I ever coached.
Wow.
And I say that because, he got on campus. Okay, so young man, I was in Altamont Springs, Florida, which is kind of like in that Orlando area.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Pretty much Orlando, you could say.
Yeah, and played on the same team as first rounder actually in Felipe Lopez, who was a shortstop that was drafted, I think, by the Reds originally,
Yeah,
and he
Felipe
might have went
Lopez.
like 7 or 9 overall or something like that. So he was playing short. Ricky was actually playing center, and nobody was like recruiting Ricky Weeks. He had like one offer at I think it was a division school actually, and he wanted to go Division 1. So again, when it talks about relationships, right, and people sharing information. So my former assistant coach, Jerry Flowers at the time, um, was actually scouting for the Reds, and he lived in Chicago, and he was down south snowbirding, which is when some of the northern scouts go down to the like Mississippi, Alabama, Florida to scout to help out, right, early on in the scouting season. So he's there and he's watching this guy that's supposed to be this first round, and then there's this other guy in the field that lit him up like, hey, why are we watching that guy and not watching this guy? Come to find out, nobody was on him. He didn't really have a Division 1 commitment. So he called my former coach, Roger Cato, and was like, hey, man, you need to come see this kid, right? So Coach Cato flies on there, sees him play, meets with the family. Family loves him, and he commits to Southern University, right? So we're there waiting on him to get on campus, like when everybody else was coming in for the fall semester. And we got a phone call from one of the maintenance guys working on campus. Like, hey, coach, there's like people on your field. Like, what do you mean people on the field? No. They drove from Altamont Springs to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They stop at our field. The Weeks family, stop at our field. So he could go stretch, take batting practice.
What?
So we walk up on this guy hitting our field. And at that point, I had not seen him live. That was my first time seeing him live.
Hmm.
And when I tell you he was launching balls as a freshman out of our field, like with no problem, it was like no problem. I'm like, okay, this dude gonna be a beast, right? And that process took a 3-year process, right? But he excelled every year, and he continued to get better. He continued to get stronger. He played on Team USA for 2 years in a row, 2 summers in a row.
Yeah.
Ends up being the second pick in the country, right? In 2003. And that year, I never forget, that was my first interaction with like front office personnel for baseball and scouting directors, because everybody was coming in to watch this guy play.
Yeah.
And Jack Zarenzik, who at the time was scouting director for the Brewers.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah. He was with Mariners eventually. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jack with the ball head.
Yeah.
So he
Wow.
comes and like we're interacting and we're talking, and the regional cross check at the time was another good mentor of mine, Tom Allison, and he's introducing me, and we're talking back and forth, and he's asking me all these questions about Ricky and all this stuff. So we're talking baseball, talking personality, talking the kid, and he essentially he kept in touch, and he would touch base with me every once in a while. I'm like, why does this guy keep calling me, like, and then the morning of the draft, right? I would never forget this. The morning of the draft, Jack Zarenzik calls me. He says, "Today's the day, Arnold. Who should I take?" I said, "Man, it's a no-brainer, man. Take Ricky."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, he's in our mix." I said, "Well, you should take him." I said, "He's gonna make you look good, right?" But what he was looking for was, he wasn't looking for my evaluation of Ricky Weeks. He was looking for insight into the person, which is an intricate part of what we do from a scouting standpoint. Because, when he was checking in, he was asking about his work ethic. Is he showing up late? Is he coming early? Does he leave early? Does he stay late? How is he in the classroom? How is he with his teammates? Those kind of questions. And I said, ultimately, Jack, I said, if you had a daughter, this is the guy you want to date your daughter, right? Because he's that kind of dude. I mean, he's as clean cut as you can imagine, and he's really like a quality human being. And he turned out to be a hell of a ball player. Played, I don't know, I think it's 11 or 12 years in the big leagues.
He played a while, yeah.
All-star. His number is retired. Well, not retired, but he was honored for the Milwaukee Brewers for his outstanding achievements as a player there. So, Ricky Weeks was a special story, man. And, a lot of people could learn from his story. This was a guy that was relatively unknown. When I say unknown, and became the best player in college baseball. The best player in college baseball. That's hard to do. I mean, all the talent that's out there. He won every honor you could have won that year. He won it.
Yeah.
At a historically black institution.
That's true too, yeah. He was all over Baseball America. They used to all the colleges would get the magazines, and man, that's all I used to hear about is Ricky Weeks. Man, that's a dope story, man. That's amazing.
No doubt.
What's besides Ricky Weeks, who's one of the best college players you have seen? Besides Ricky, I know you mentioned Ricky Weeks, but another one
that I have coached or that I have just seen.
Yeah, you just seen as a scout or while you coaching, just someone you was like, man, this guy's amazing.
I think Aaron Hill is another one from went to LSU, ended up being first rounder with Toronto. I think in either 2001 or 2002. Played a long time for Toronto, ended up being an all-star, 30 home run type hitter. He's another good one. I saw Jake Arrieta in college. Well, as a scout or as a coach? You're talking about as a coach, right?
Coach or a scout, either one.
Yeah.
Yeah, coach or scout.
I think Jake Arrieta is another good one that I saw. He's another guy that kind of took some time to develop. A high school kid out of Texas that ended up going to TCU, ended up being a first round pick. Obviously, he's gone on to have a very successful career. And I'm trying to float through my mind here as far as college players. Good college players. I saw Chris Bryant in college. I mean, not out of my region, but I saw Chris Bryant. Obviously, he turned out to be pretty good. Kyle Schwarber ended up getting to the big leagues with the Cubs. Obviously, was drafted as a catcher, but ended up being like a corner outfielder. But he's been pretty successful. Those are ones off the top of my head right now that I can think about. I'm pretty sure once I get off this call, I probably have to rattle off like 100 more.
Yeah. We have a question here from Aaron Lynch. Did you play against Corey Wimberly at Alcorn State?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't place it right now, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
he sounds familiar to me.
He was with the Rockies, and then he was with the A's. He was my teammate in Fall League 1 year, so I know who he's talking about, Corey Wimberly. Okay. He's a coach for. I know he was coaching for the Braves, I want to say, in the minor league system. Maybe somebody else now, but he was like a second baseman, and then I think he might have turned like a utility player after a while. I could be wrong, but
right.
Yeah. What's your thoughts about the Baseball Classic and about the Virgin Islands? Hopefully, are they still gonna have the Baseball Classic, the World Baseball Classic, or they're finished?
Yes, they should restart it. Obviously with the pandemic and then everything else that was going on, they should restart it though. Yeah, I would hope they restart it.
What's your thoughts about maybe one day the Virgin Islands gets a team where they could represent the World Baseball Classic, just because baseball has been so pivotal in the Virgin Islands, and Virgin Islands have had so many players that play professional baseball.
You just touched the topic, and I'm gonna kind of segue into something else. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Okay, like there's no reason why at the Virgin Islands we couldn't compete in that type of event. But in order to do so, we need the entire Virgin Islands, right? It can't be like a St. Croix team, St. Thomas team. It gotta be a combination of, because I truly believe, like growing up, especially in them early years, whether it be Little League or Senior League, like if we had combined our talent as a Virgin Islands team, even though, you go to St. Thomas or St. Thomas come over to St. Croix to compete against each other, once that competition is done, if we took the best players from each team, I think when we went abroad, whether it's to compete in the Latin American tournament or go beyond that, would have been a hell of a lot better off. But, it was like, well, St. Thomas wins, St. Thomas got to represent, or St. Croix wins, so St. Croix got to represent. But it's a Virgin Islands team, so it should have been players from both islands, essentially, right? I think if we had, at the time, had that mindset of combining those teams, I think it would have been a bigger force on the stage. And which brings me kind of to your point about competing on that type of level. We had the caliber of players to compete on that level, and those, days are kind of behind us. But now, if you kind of revitalize the game and get things going again, that's what should be done if you want to win, right? And that's ultimately what we want to do is bring the Virgin Islands together and then go against like whomever, whether it be in Latin America or like on that big world stage. And we have enough players that we could have done it, but now you have to do it with what you have. And I don't think you can do it from one island. I think you have to do it from a combination of both. And we have enough players like out playing college and in the minor leagues and whatnot. So like it could be done.
That's true. We have a what we have another question here. What will it take to close the competitive gap between HBCUs and other nationally known schools?
I don't know necessarily the gap is the issue. Um, because keep in mind, I mean, those HBCUs aren't getting the same coverage as your Power Five conferences, meaning your SEC, ACC, Big Ten, Pac-10, Big 12, right?
Yeah,
They're not getting the same
true.
coverage. The player gap is somewhat large because now there are more minorities going to those schools. So they're not really gravitating to the HBCUs, right? Because everybody want to play on the big stage. So that's part of the issue. The other part of the issue is when you're competing against, let's say, Southern versus LSU in a midweek game. That midweek game is not as important to us from a win-loss. It is, but from a overall ranking, it's not. So your weekend starting rotation, your better arms, they ain't pitching in that midweek game. So then you kind of reduce to maybe a freshman or sophomore that probably is not a season.
That's true. Yeah,
So you're not using your better arms because at the weekend your conference series is what's more important as far as your ranking. But the caliber of player ultimately is what shrinks the gap. And the gap ain't gonna be. You can't shrink the gap if some of the better players are going to your Power Five conferences and not going to HBCUs. That's a big part of it. And then ultimately, people are attracted to what they see, right? The aesthetics of different programs and facilities and whatnot. So
that's
if you
true.
walk on, LSU campus opposed to Alcorn State campus, is stark different, right? So that's part of it as well. I mean, you got pump money back in them HBCUs to get them on that level to where the facilities are, up to par with some of these other places. Because if you walk in, let's say like South Carolina better than most A-ball stadiums you're gonna walk into, better than most AA stadiums you're gonna walk into. It sits 15,000 people.
Yeah,
It's wide, it's open, it's spacious. I mean, that was renovated like almost 10 years ago now, and it's still better than some of the minor league parks you're gonna walk into. But some of these big Power Five conferences, they pushing a whole lot of money into these facilities, so you have that to deal with. So if you're alumni at HBCU, come on your pocket and stick some of that money back in them programs.
that's true. That's true. That is true. This is a question I have for you earlier too. Because I know you was with the Angels around this time, and this was 2007 when Nick Edenhart passed away, right? You was with the Angels, and that's somebody I knew well just by competing against him, coming up in the minor league system, and then he just took it to another level as far as being one of the top pitchers. How that impacted the organization from your standpoint, being a scout with his passing?
Yeah, that was devastating, man. Obviously, because when you take a guy that high and all the work that goes involved in taking a player like that, there's a lot of people involved, obviously,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of connections, not only with the family but the player himself. So, when you get that news that this player passed away in a tragic car accident, like um, after pitching the game where he's in the big league stage, and
yeah,
life taken away so short. And I just remember at the time Eddie Bain, who was our scouting director, shared a letter that the family wrote to him with us, the scouting staff, and how appreciative they were of all the things that the Angels did to help facilitate them when they were going through the process, and you know taking care of him through the minor leagues and getting him to the big leagues, and everything that they did, and it was touching, but in itself it was a devastating experience to happen, not only to that family but to the organization, to all the players that and coaches and support staff that touched that young man before his passing, to then have to deal with that tragic accident. So, I mean, it was rough, man. It was rough for a while.
Yeah, it was rough because I remember because he was with Rancho Cucamonga, and I remember when he got called up, and when you play against in the minor league system, when you play against a lot of different players and they get called up, it's like you pay attention to them because this is somebody that you played against year in and year out. So you kind of measure yourself with them because you measure yourself with certain athletes you compete against in the minor league system. You be like, man, if he could make it, I could make it. You have that type of mentality. But seeing it, I know he kind of struggled a little bit when he got up, but then the following year, I remember he picked because it was like early in the year when it happened. It was I want to say it was in April. Yeah, it might have been in April because it was like the first month of the season because Major League starts just before the minor league season, and he had pitched a good game. He pitched like a great game, and it looked like he was turning the corner, like he was going to be what they expected him to be. And that happened, and it was like, man, it was devastating from playing against him from a player's standpoint. So I just wanted to hear your point of view from being involved with the organization.
Yeah, no
So
doubt, man.
was
It was a tragic loss. It was a tragic loss, and to a young man that had so much upside and so many things going for him, but
you have a player. I went to Shark season 8 in 2005. I got called up. That was in the California League. And that league was, the hitters in that league in 2005 was ridiculous. A lot of them ended up going to the Major League, but it had this player for the Angels named Brandon Wood. I don't know if you remember Brandon Woods, shortstop.
Oh yeah, I remember Brandon Woods very well.
Yeah, and he
was a
toured.
kid. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say he kind of, and in the fall league, he kind of he destroyed the fall league too. So I wanted to hear your standpoint on him because I thought he was one of the best baseball players. He's one of the best minor league hitters I ever seen in my life.
I think you phrased it right, Momba. One of the best minor league hitters you've seen in your life, because you're right. He literally one of the guys that destroyed the minor leagues and just never made the adjustment to the big leagues.
Yeah.
I remember we drafted him as a high school player. I think he was an Arizona kid, if I remember correctly. And he was a first rounder that, like you said, was a shortstop, right-handed hitter. And he went on and had some immediate success. I mean, he played well to the point where, he was matriculating to the big leagues, and he was putting up numbers in the minor leagues. And he had got his first cup of coffee with the Angels. That winter, he went to winter ball. And at the time, Ron Marion and myself were in the Dominican. Tony Regans, Mike Sosha, and Adi Moreno, because Adi had just bought the team at the time with the Angels, had came down to strike a deal with not Escogido, but I can't think of the other team right now. Estrella. They were trying to strike a deal with Estrella, so players could play on the team. So he was one of the group of guys that came down. Brandon Wood, Nick Gorneau. There was somebody else. It was 3 or 4 of them. I would tell you that Brandon Wood didn't make it maybe 2 weeks in the DR before they sent him home, to the point where the local fans was going, Brandon who? I mean,
Wow.
Every time the bat, they were like killing him, killing him. And they said, man, we need to get this guy out of here because, I mean, he was faltering, and, his comfort level and his success level wasn't good. So the best thing for them to do was get him out of there. But you're right. He was like one of the best minor league prospects, but never actually figured things out at the big league level.
I always wondered that, man. Honestly, like, man, he could hit in the minor leagues. He could hit, brother. Man, I went to the California League and it was All-Star time when I went. It was All-Star break or just before All-Star break, and his numbers was. I mean, the California League, the wind blows out a lot. The ball travels easy as well too, so the numbers is inflated. But it was just amazing just to see the numbers he put up. It was crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. He did put up some monster numbers.
We have a question here. Have you ever encountered Brandon Cole of the Mets?
I have not. No, I have not. Not to my memory. No.
So I know we kind of mentioned earlier about baseball in the Virgin Islands, but what do you think is gonna take for baseball to revive itself in the Virgin Islands?
Hey, great question. First and foremost, it's gonna take people that are willing to do some moving and shaking to get it done. Meaning individuals that want to spend the time with the youth to teach them baseball. Like I remember, we talked about like Kenny Clark and Glenn Byron and the people that would like pick you up like Genix. You get to the park, you got to ride home. I remember Horace Clark used to drive his truck up and down the main road, in senior league, and you there at a certain time, you're gonna go right to the park and you got right home from the park.
That's true.
Like people are gonna willing to sacrifice their time and give up their time to help these youth get better at baseball. We gotta get on the same page with everybody else. Like right now, we should be playing high school baseball in the territory, right? This is the time to play baseball. And baseball season should run from like February to end of May, and then you start your quote unquote summer season or travel ball season or whatever you want to call it. We gotta get on that cycle. We're not on that cycle. We need to get on that cycle. We got ballparks that need to be addressed. Like, when's the last renovation that happened to any ballpark at home? Outside of the renovation, who are you gonna have to take care of the parks? You have people that work at Parks and Rec, that's part of their job, but you need like people from the community to come out and help deal with these kids and the parks. I mean, that's just what it takes. And then from a competitive standpoint, I mentioned, combining St. Croix and St. Thomas and having like a VI team, a true VI team. Using what we have now as a platform to build so kids can get exposed to colleges, bringing, college coaches down to potentially, have different, events at home versus, trying to travel abroad, bring them home to us. At some point in time, we're supposed to be, building this new Poly Georgia Stadium for donkey years. No, that ain't done yet. But, when you build something like that, something that's nice, then you hold like, major tournaments. And I'm not talking just for people or players from home, but bring people down, whether it's like a college tournament, early spring where you have these northern schools looking for that warm, nice climate to play in. You're building revenue for hotels and travel and all this other stuff when, people are able to come down. I mean, those are the type things that, again, opens the door, opens the eyes, and then obviously the competition takes care of itself because then you're playing against outside competition and you're kind of building up that resume, to go out and compete in different avenues and spaces. Just off the top of my head, that's some of the stuff I thought about.
That's true. That's true. We kind of winding down. I have this question, and it pertains to you bringing up the Paulie Joseph Stadium too. How do you feel about the Virgin Islands having a winter ball team? And the reason I ask that is just because if Paulie Joseph if it gets built and it becomes a nice attraction, like you mentioned about college teams coming down, etc., that would probably be a ballpark that could hold winter league games for the Virgin Islands, just because the Virgin Islands is just so close to Puerto Rico, and it's also close to the Dominican Republic, and then Venezuela is just right there down south. As far as hosting the Caribbean series, but having Paulie Joseph right there, we could probably integrate into the Puerto Rican Winter League. I'm not sure how it works behind the scenes. This is just me thinking, abroad as well. How you feel about that?
Well, you mentioned how it works behind the scenes. I don't know if we have the capability of like hosting a team. We might be able to host a game or maybe host a series to where, you're exposing the Virgin Islands fan base to what winter ball is all about. I don't know if those teams will essentially want to be giving up revenue to travel to like a neutral site.
That's a good point. That's true.
Instead of playing just because of, for our, welfare or our own sake. But
that's true.
That's something that, could be thought about. I mean, it's a good brainstorming thing because if you could host, even a game or a series, I think the caliber of baseball that people would see would be like wow, this is a lot different than we normally would see. They'll begin to understand really how bigger and stronger and how faster, the game actually is, right?
That's true.
You played at the minor league level, but I'm sure every step you took, the game took a step too. And, some people always speed up with the game, and those are the guys that normally get, passed by or left behind as the others move, because ultimately it's like, it's this pyramid as you move, the talent gets better, right? But I think, to your point, it'll be a nice thing if we're able to see as a territory like this caliber of baseball and what it's really like. Or even, for the powers that be, for all the power brokers, if you get that type of facility where, where Major League Baseball is always trying to expand the game and, be ambassador of the game, to hold a spring training game, or a series down there. Again, you're, being an ambassador and expanding the viewership of the game. All those things are possible, but, it's the powers that be that have to make those kind of decisions. Those are power broker decisions way above my pay grade.
That's true. That's true. And I was gonna bring that up too with the spring training, just because a couple of times they had games over in Puerto Rico, at Bitor Stadium. So with Virgin Islands again being rich in the history of baseball that's connected with Major League, having Paulie Joseph Stadium, I think that would be a perfect opportunity for Major League spring training games, or even, you never know with a Major League team, you just never know. But that would be something cool to see in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be cool. So I have some quick hitters for you.
Okay.
We're coming on to the end. I definitely have some quick hitters for you. First one is your top 5 favorite baseball players for the Virgin Islands that you just love seeing. I'm not your best, your favorite, just to love seeing. You love seeing them play.
Love seeing them play?
Yeah.
That's a tough question, man.
Yeah, because you've seen a lot, so I feel kind of bad asking you this.
They don't have to be like pro players, right?
No, it could be anybody. It could be growing up as a kid, anybody. Yeah.
Ramon Davila is one shortstop. I think he was one of the better shortstop growing up. I know I mentioned Kenny Milligan earlier. The Wiz. You know, from a young age, like I was a big fan of Eustace Roach. I don't know if you know that name, but
that's my boy. That's my boy. That's
okay.
my guy. Yeah. Peanut. Yeah,
Peanut.
Peanut.
A quick story on Peanut. Like I think Peanut had one of the best breaking balls I've ever seen as a young player.
Yeah.
And I think it was 11 to 12 All-Star. Where Genix was like, "Hey, you gonna be able to catch up." I said, "What? Ain't no catch. What are you talking about?"
He would do that.
You gonna catch Roach? I was like, "No, I'm not." But I ended up being one of the catchers. I ended up catching Roach, and I was like, I was fascinated. I mean, I really was fascinated by this dude breaking ball. Like it was literally at that stage like unhittable.
Wow.
Yeah, he had one of the best breaking balls. Best players. Man, you get me stumped on that one. See, you're gonna get me in trouble tonight, man.
That's the same thing I was thinking. I was like, man, I'm gonna get this man in trouble. I had to ask it, though. I had to. You can pass it if you want, though.
I think Robbie Smalls is another one. I mean, playing against him, like he's probably one of the better arms I faced, like growing up. Like, and again, at that point I was older, but yeah, he would be. He would be on that list. Man. Oh, you got me, man. You got me. That was a brain teaser that you got me stumped right now.
Yeah.
There's so many names going through my head right now, like you know, trying to figure out who's better than who and trying to put them in some kind of order. You got me scrambling. That don't happen too often.
You know what is your reactions just pretty much tells it all about the baseball in the Virgin Islands, about just how good it was your time growing up, even when I was in Little League as well too. And you know more than me, you have seen more than me, and you know it just says a lot. Your reaction just pretty much tells it, you know. So
a lot of good players.
Yeah, and that's not even talking about, you know, players from, you know, over in St. Thomas as well too, because you grew up at St. Croix, so you didn't really get a chance to see all the players at St. Thomas as well. So it just says a lot how, you know.
Yeah, man. I mean, the ones from St. Thomas that jump out really, like Casey Hendricks jumped out. Like he was a crafty left-hander, but I don't think nobody could pitch like him. You know.
Wow.
You got Sean Scabriel, but then you got Pico, who had more power than all of them. But you know, Sean Scabriel was a good hitter, and then you know, guys like Royo. I mean, those are older guys, but I played against them. Like, it's a lot of good players that came to our time. My time, you know, probably to get or needed more recognition. I tell you what, if the time was reversed, where we were coming to now, where you have, you know, your Instagrams and your Twitters and your
Facebook and YouTube
and all these YouTubes and all these things, like, I think our caliber of baseball would have been totally like different. Like totally different. I think the VI would be like that second mecca with all the talent. And not only like on a professional level, but you know, like all the players that went to the college level.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Don Frazier.
Oh yeah, from St. Thomas, yeah.
From St. Thomas, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I never heard of that. So that's good. Appreciate it.
Donnie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so another quick hitter. 5 best minor league players you ever seen play while you were scouting or watching a game.
5 best minor league players.
Yeah, players that you've seen in the minor leagues that they could have ended up being professional baseball players too, but they was just like how we talked about Brandon Woods, like that type,
right.
In a way too.
Well, he's one. He's definitely one.
Yeah.
He's definitely one.
Yeah, you could name 3 to 5. 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Yeah.
Xavier Logan, Nuke Logan. He ended up going by Nuke Logan, but it was Xavier Logan.
That's a dope name.
Ended up playing center field in the big leagues, but came up as a shortstop, was drafted as a shortstop out of Gulf Coast, Mississippi Junior College. Saw him playing in minor leagues. Adam Jones, probably the best minor league player I've seen. Saw him playing Wisconsin Rapids as I think an 18-year-old. 18-year-old. And at the time he was a shortstop.
I play with him. That year in California League with Brandon Woods. I played with Brandon Adam Jones.
Yeah, he's probably one of the best ones I've seen.
Amazing athlete. Amazing.
Trying to think about some pitchers. Jeez, I getting old, Mumba. My brain ain't walking as good.
Hey, that's how I feel every day, brother. That's how I feel every day. Trust me.
Oof. You got me. Those are ones good. Off the top of my head. Those two.
Yeah. You named Tree. You named Tree. That was good. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Best top five major league players you ever seen play. I know you mentioned Mike Trout earlier, so we talk. You might so that.
Okay, that so I think Trout's on top of the list. I mean, he has to be on top of the list for me.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts is second.
Okay.
Albert Pujols. Right now I'm a big fan of Ronald Acuna Jr. Like I'm a big fan.
He's problems. He's different.
Yeah,
he's problems.
He's good. Roy Halladay falls in that. I mean, just from a pitching standpoint, Roy Halladay.
That was my favorite pitcher in the minor. When I was in the minor leagues, that was my favorite pitcher. I read his book too.
Yeah, man. This dude was phenomenal, man.
Amazing.
I was a big fan of Hugh Darvish when he was with the Rangers.
Man, he was nasty.
He was like when he first got on the scene. Like I was very impressed. I mean, just from a pitching standpoint. I saw Michael Fulmer, who was the 20-game winner, Rookie of the Year with Detroit. Actually saw him amateur and in the big leagues.
Wow.
And that one jumps out. Ian Anderson, who just got there with the Braves, scouted him as an amateur player in New York, and then what he's doing now. And then I guess the last one would be Luis Guerrera.
Okay.
He ended up kind of being like an up and down guy, but like I scouted him in Brazil, which is a funny story. But I scouted him in Brazil. Obviously, he ended up signing originally with Seattle and then was traded and then ended up getting to the big leagues with the Braves. But 6'4", 6'5" as a 16-year-old, trying 394, 95, and then see him in the big leagues throwing 100 was like, that's what it's supposed to look like.
All right, this just came to mind. You ever seen Mark Lowe pitch? He came up with the Mariners.
Yes. And big right-hander, yes.
Yeah. He was my roommate, but he was I remember when he first got to the major league, he was nasty. He was just ridiculous. So you talking about some of the pitchers, he came to my mind. So I just wanted to know if you ever saw him pitch,
Yeah, he was a big right-hander. Ended up being a reliever, but yeah, I mean, he was good.
Yeah. That came to my mind with Yu Darvish because I want to say Yu Darvish was the Rangers during that time when they went to the World Series back-to-back years. I want to say, and they lost to St. Louis and they lost to someone else. I want to say maybe the Giants or
The
somebody.
Giants 2010 in their home stadium. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they was dominating those, they was dominating, and man, that was tough. That was heartbreaking to see that for those guys. But I mean, it's just tough, man. You know how it is to it's hard to win a World Series, man. And for them to be that close back-to-back years, even with St. Louis. St. Louis was down one, they was down one strike, and St. Louis came back, but
Right.
yeah. So would you say you Darvish? That's what the question came to my mind.
No doubt.
An actor to play your life story in a movie. An actor.
Actor to play me.
Yeah, your life story in a movie.
Wow. That's a good one. Don Cheadle.
Oh, not what, man. Nice, right? Man, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, I got one more question, but Akeem Maynard just asked a question, and I'll get to his question. What current minor league players to look out for that we may not know that's on their way?
Helito
Ramos.
Yeah, he was 17-year-old center fielder that we actually drafted out of Puerto Rico a couple years ago. He should be playing probably AA or AAA, but he's almost big league ready. The other one would be like, and this one's kind of farther away, but Bo Naylor, who's a younger brother of Josh Naylor.
Okay.
Bo Naylor's a catcher in the Cleveland organization that was drafted 2 years ago. That's a name I'll look out for. I think he's going to be an impact big leaguer.
Okay. Oh, man, what's his name? I play with him. Garcia Petit, reliever.
The right-handed pitcher?
Yeah. What? You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm pronouncing his first name wrong, but his last name is Petit.
Correct.
He was with the Giants, and
yeah.
How? I want to how his longevity. It's amazing.
Hey man, some you mentioned longevity. Some players okay, let me put it this way. From a hitting standpoint, you got to figure out how to stay relevant by understanding how people pitch into you to continue to hit at the big league level, right? You got to continue to make adjustments. Pitchers the same way. You have to continue to figure out a way how to get people out. That's how you keep a job. And I think even the years with us, truly like that 2012 to 2014 span where he was literally like went from long relief to middle relief to like spot starting, like he could fill different roles.
Yeah. Okay.
Where you might need 2 or 3 guys to do what this one guy could do. And I think that's what helped him maintain his longevity in the big leagues.
You hit it right in the head. That's true. That's true. You're right. All right. So my last quick hitter question: 5 words that describe you.
5 words that describe me?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hey, I tell you, I could talk to you always about baseball just because my experiences and the players I play with, but
right.
That's why I keep coming up with these questions.
All right, 5 words to describe me. Dedicated, persistent, intelligent, humble, hardworking, and caring. That was 5 or 6. Did I miss one?
I mean, that's good. That's good though. More the better. So I ain't gonna complain.
All right.
Yeah, man. So you want to give, I mean, before we wrap it up, you want to give any shout outs, your shout outs to your family, your friends, I want to give shout outs to all the viewers because, they tuned in for you, they asked a lot of great questions. So I appreciate all the viewers tuning in and supporting, on Brathwaite and his episode, episode 72. So I definitely appreciate all the viewers, tuning in and supporting. So I definitely want to put that out there.
Yeah, man. First and foremost, Mumba, like, I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on this podcast. And hopefully the people that, we touched tonight, get some insight into my world and, into the scouting world per se. And, hopefully I answered, the questions that they asked, and hopefully they learned something. But from a shout out standpoint, obviously, the core that keeps my family together is my wife, Erin, at home, and Nikolai's son that, does what he needs to do in school, which is the most important thing for me. And, my brother and my sister still on St. Croix, just, and then all my friends, which probably most of them is baseball heads, so they're probably on here anyway, from, J.D. Clark to Glenn Byron, Kareem Smith, Ho Chi, Dre, like Terry B, Jeff, and then the people like I don't get to talk to every day or see, maybe once a year, like, when I come home, just big up to all you guys, and, looking forward to, to seeing you guys at some point, and, seeing you on parade day under the tent, we could share a beer.
Oh yeah, all my YouTube, everybody watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. And I brought a lot of people, so definitely subscribe to the channel. So I appreciate you guys tuning in for that too. Yeah. So I gotta get that out there.
Oh, no problem. And then, hey, I just want to tell you, Mumba, like, this is a great thing, man. I really appreciate you doing it.
Thank you, man.
To big up all the Virgin Islanders that are out here doing, different things in different capacities, such as yourself.
Appreciate it.
It's a great thing, man. And I really appreciate it. And I hope that everybody else enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. We have one more question. I have to ask it. Have you been approached by the VI to assist in building baseball to an elite level?
I've been approached by, I guess the best way to answer this question. I've been approached in the past, and I've been approached recently to give some insight in how we can do things better in the Virgin Islands. So I'm always open to helping, all Virgin Islanders try to get better. People call me all the time and ask me, different things and give different insights, and I don't turn people away. I had a young man. I remember you actually mentioned his name earlier. Came in that called me and was like, "Hey, I'm looking to do X, Y, and Z, or I needed some help on something." And I was like, "Hey, no problem, dude. Hey, pick up the phone." Made a couple phone calls and was able to help him. And he was like, "Well, why you help me?" I was like, "Because you asked." You know what I mean? If you ask me for help, I'm gonna do my best to help you. Now, not all things I can make happen. But if it's in my wheelhouse that I could, help facilitate something or help somebody in some kind of way, I got no problems doing that, man. But, who are we without help? Like, I didn't get to where I'm at without help. I rattle off like so many names tonight, but there's so many others, that help us along the way to get where we're at, So I'm not going to refuse somebody if I could help them.
That's true. That is true. Man, Anna, this was amazing, man. It was a pleasure. It was an honor really getting to know you, hearing your stories, the in-depth about scouting. You drop a lot of gems, a lot of knowledge, I think will help a lot of, people that's watching, that has kids that's playing sports overall. You touched on so many important topics, so Man, I definitely appreciate you, man. And you got the hardest job. You got to take us out, man. You got to take us out. You can say anything, man. The Elite Podcast, we all, everybody, big up yourself, be safe, whatever, something.
Hey, Elite Podcast. It was a great honor, great pleasure. Thank you very much, Mumba. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. See you next time.